March 14th. Wait, that's not right. It should say the day that crabs fries.
Hello every pony, it's that super duper special time again since it's time for yet another cartoon ranking video. Last time I reviewed every episode of Craig McCracken's first original series, the Powerpuff Girls. You guys voted and overwhelmingly wanted me to review his next series, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. This was yet another one of my favorite Cartoon Network shows as a kid, and unsurprisingly, it's still pretty good to this day. Unfortunately, it has some notable flaws like a handful of awful episodes as well as the last two seasons dropping in quality, but I'll get to that in a bit. Anyway, I don't want to waste any time, so let's quickly go over some of the rules. First off, I will be ranking every single episode, including specials like Good Will Hunting, A Lost Clause, and the movie Destination Imagination. Second, there are going to be episodes that you like that I don't, and ones that I like that you don't. If you want to discuss your thoughts on an episode or multiple episodes, then comment below. Third, I will be rating each episode on a score of 1 to 10. Fourth, some of the episode listings are messed up and out of order. Wikipedia and IMDb have listings that are notably different from the DVD box set, which is how I watch the series and what I use to order the episodes. Speaking of the DVD box set, I feel like talking about that real quick. The first thing that sucks, this whole thing isn't even attached to the box, which is fucking stupid. Why is this not connected? It looks like it should attach to it, but you open it up, it's not even attached. The other thing I can't stand, they have these discs on top of each other. So if I want to get disc 2, I have to take out disc 1. Okay, that opened up pretty easily, but most of the time, when I take the discs out, it feels like I'm going to break them. I'm putting a decent amount of force. I guess it depends where I'm putting the pressure on this, but it really feels like I'm about to break the discs anytime I try and take them off. Or one good thing about this, it comes with this little sleeve that has every episode on it. And this is something the Ed, Edd n Eddy DVD has. Lets you know which episode is on which disc. But the thing that sucks about this, it doesn't have the Halloween special, the Christmas special, and more importantly, the movie, which is stupid considering that's the finale and the specials are great. This thankfully has the Halloween special and the Christmas special, and the movie has everything. So that is one really good thing. Seasons 1, 2, and 3 were originally released and they just re-skinned them on here. And then 4, 5, and 6 are brand new. And somehow they crammed all of season 6 on this one disc. But yeah, kind of annoying with the packaging, but overall pretty good. Anyway, shortly after you guys voted for Foster's, I made another poll asking whether you liked it or the Powerpuff Girls more. Surprisingly, Powerpuff Girls won in a fucking landslide, which I did not expect whatsoever. I have always considered both shows to be on the same level, and it's hard to say which one I prefer. But just for fun, I thought I'd do the math and see which show I technically think is better. So if you want to see which series comes out on top, then make sure to watch until the end. Anyway, let's get on with the ranking and start with the absolute worst episode, which is
wow, this is shit.
Before rewatching the series, I knew there were a few episodes that sucked, however I didn't realize that some of them were offensively terrible. Bendy is infamously hated by not only fans of Foster's, but fans of any cartoon series. That episode is god-awful, however there's two that are somehow worse, and one of them is Imposter's Home for Make-em-up Pals. Basically, there's this guy named Goofball John McGee who claims to be an imaginary friend, even though he's clearly just a teenager. For whatever reason, everyone but Frankie is dumb enough to believe him, which is extremely dumb and forced. Balloon Eduardo falling for this is fine, but every single character in the house just doesn't make sense. During the last act, Max shows up for like 15 seconds just to leave once Goofball comes in. I was going to ask what was the point of even putting him in the episode if he isn't going to do anything, but it turns out he actually went and hung out with Goofball and everyone else, which just makes this episode even worse. Again, I originally thought Mac was only here for like 15 seconds and then left because the writers didn't want him to meet Goofball. If that happened, then Mac would have agreed with Frankie in thinking that Goofball isn't an imaginary friend. That actually would have been a decent plot line. Mac and Frankie work together to try and prove that Goofball is nothing but a lazy sack of... But no, for whatever reason, Mac is also dumb enough to believe Goofball because this butchers Mac's character. He's almost always supposed to be the voice of reason, but now he's just as dumb as everyone else. Anyway, the main problem is that this is nothing but a Frankie torture corn. Frankie does a bunch of chores, but Goofball keeps bothering her and ruining her day. She can't even go to the goddamn store without wanting to jump off a cliff in Minecraft. No matter what she does, she can't win or be happy because this episode hates her. Another big reason as to why this doesn't work is because Frankie didn't deserve any of this. In the beginning, she reveals that she keeps a jar of quarters, which Blue fills whenever he's wrong and Frankie is right. This was put in to show that Frankie believes that she's always right, even though, yeah, she usually is. If this was meant to show Frankie in a bad way, then it fails miserably. Frankie taking advantage of Blue and taking his money is sort of wrong, but at the same time, Blue has made mistakes before, and she's usually been right. If Frankie made this jar for everyone in the house and took money from them whenever they were wrong, then that'd be one thing, but this is just for Blue. So again, trying to show that Frankie is wrong for, always being right doesn't work.
I knew it! Undeniable proof that you are not an imaginary...
What the Sigma?
Everything I've complained about so far pales in comparison to its ending, since it's revealed that Goofball was actually an imaginary friend all along. So all that suffering Frankie endured was for nothing, since it turns out she was wrong. It is shocking, but it's not funny at all. It's mainly just annoying and frustrating. For those who don't know, the original plan was for Goofball to be a regular 30-year-old man. He'd be exactly what all of us thought he'd be, a lazy moocher that was taking advantage of fosters. However, Cartoon Network told them that didn't sound appropriate for kids, so the writers made Goofball a teenager, but also an imaginary friend too. Now I understand changing him from a 30-year-old dude to a teenager, since Foster's is a foster home, not a cupcake factory. But what was so wrong about showing a teenager being a dick and mooching off of Fosters? There would have been multiple lessons, such as not taking advantage of others, lying, and I guess trusting others, since everyone still wouldn't have believed Frankie. But I guess Cartoon Network cared more about shock value for some reason instead of making an actual good episode. Anyway, is there anything I liked here? Goofball tells Frankie that she took good care of him, so at least he appreciates her, so that's something. But still, it doesn't mean I forgive you for being the biggest piece of shit on the planet and making the red-haired maiden Frankie suffer. Goofball, you're a horrendous hobknocker poopy head. You're big, fat, smelly, and ugly, and I'm going to do the world a favor and destroy you once and for all.
Take this, Goofball! 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 Goofball!
Fucking little pedophile. Oh, this shit's ass.
Oh, Nightball! Oh, Goofball! Oh.
Batter up.
Oh, Goofball! Fuck you, Goofball! Fuck you, Goofball! Yeah! Fucking bitch!
Fucking goofball! Fuck cares about you! Ugh. Pedophile.
It's a fucking Frankie! Surprise, motherfucker!
This is another episode that a lot of people hate, and for good reason too. Instead of this being a Frankie torture corn, it's instead a Mac torture corn. Yay.
Yay!
So Mac believes that Blue is throwing him a surprise party, which upsets him since every year Blue threw a party and embarrassed him. Mac goes around the house trying to ruin the party even though he doesn't actually know that there is one. Then he finds out that there is a party and of course he sabotages it. However, it turns out that the party wasn't meant for him, but instead it was for this little green freak called Artie who's never been seen before. Everyone hates Mac now, so he makes up for it by throwing Artie a brand new party where he dresses up as John Wayne Gacy.
I want to dress up like a clown and have sex with children and kill them.
However, yep, it turns out that Artie was Madame Foster, and Blue's plan was for Mac to throw his own party and embarrass himself. This is basically a repeat of the last episode where most of it is built up for a shocking ending, however it feels miserably. These endings are shocking, but that's all they have going for them. They're poorly written and ruin or at least worsen the episodes even more. They should have ended with Frankie being right, and here Mac should have been wrong. Mac is an unlikable asshole for most of it, which makes it hard to watch. Now, it would have been fine if there was no party and Mac realized that it was his fault for not believing Blue. This would have been interesting to see Mac not be the voice of reason and actually be wrong for once. But I can't even say this since he was right all along. He embarrasses himself and everyone was in on the prank. Why are they all doing this to Mac? They all love him, so why are they being dicks like this? It's yet another episode that's super mean-spirited just for the hell of it. Also, am I missing something, or couldn't Mac have gone home early for the day? If he did, then Blue's plan would have been ruined and Mac wouldn't have embarrassed himself. But I guess if he did that, then there wouldn't be an episode now, would there? Anyway, it's another offensively awful episode, almost nothing enjoyable besides a small handful of good jokes.
Yes, I win!
No, I cover you.
But I caught you.
Wow, what an asshole.
Oh boy, it's time to talk about that little yellow fucker Bendy. Like I said before, this is infamously known as not only being one of the worst episodes, but one of the worst episodes from any kid's cartoon. Literally everyone despises this, and of course it's easy to see why. So there's this family that brings their kid's imaginary friend named Bendy to Foster's because apparently he causes nothing but trouble. Now the parents never actually saw Bendy do anything wrong, but their son did, so they believe him. Frankie and Harriman think their kid was blaming Bendy for all the things he did, so now they pity him. Shortly after this, Bendy meets the gang, causes trouble, and blames it on them. For whatever reason, Frankie and Harriman believe Bendy overruled Coco and Ed, even though they've been at Foster's for years now. Why do they trust this piss stain so much? I get that they pity him and all, but how do you trust him more than everyone at Foster's? This is especially irritating since this happens multiple times. Don't you think that after like the third time you'd realize that maybe, just maybe, Bendy is actually a gigantic waste of goddamn space? But yeah, Harriman and especially Frankie are out of character and are only written like this for the episode to work. Actually, no, I lied. The episode doesn't work because it's yet another torture corn where Blue, Wilt, Ed, and Coco are miserable the entire time. Like the last two episodes, none of these characters deserve this except for maybe Blue. But then again, this is only an early season 2 episode, and by this point Blue hasn't done anything majorly dickish. In fact, he actually didn't do anything wrong here to begin with. He was just playing Fortnite with everyone and minding his own business. Then he tries to get proof of Bendy being a dick, which he eventually does, although it results in the house getting flooded. Normally this would be a pretty awful thing for Blue to do, but I'm gonna be honest, I really don't care by this point. Throughout the whole episode, we've seen Bendy lie and lie and lie and see everyone get punished for things he did. So to finally see him get caught is pretty satisfying.
Blue, you flooded the house!
Yeah, but Bendy took a cookie.
Yeah, this is another big reason why everyone hates the steaming pile of ostrich fecal matter. We can't even get the satisfaction of seeing Harriman and Frankie implode on Bendy for being a big smelly doo-doo head. No, instead Blue gets yelled at for flooding the house, which yeah, that's pretty bad, but again, by this point I just don't care. I feel just as angry and annoyed as Blue here, so that is one thing I will give the episode. There's some episodes where Blue is god-awful, but here I actually sympathize with him and want him to succeed. Anyway, they could have yelled at Blue all day long, but please, for the love of Jeffrey Epstein, just give me the satisfaction of seeing Bendy get in trouble. All they had to do was have Harriman and Frankie yell at him, but then go off on Blue. But again, we don't even get that.
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit. I'm horny as fuck, man.
Why was Bendy even created in the first place? Wouldn't his kid have made him because he was lonely or something? Who, what, where, and why was Bendy made like this? His creator seemed like a regular kid, unless maybe he's exactly like Bendy? I actually never thought about this until writing just now. Bendy was made to take the blame for his creator. That's why he acts the way he does and why he's such a detestable piece of moldy sewage water. There's no other explanation as to why Bendy is like this. I can't believe it. After 2 long decades, I finally solved the mystery as to why Bendy fucking sucks. I bet if this episode was a full 22 minutes, it'd end with Bendy's family coming back saying that they found out that their kid was a troublemaker all along. Bendy's kid would apologize, he'd get taken back home, and everyone would learn a very important lesson: not to be an asshole.
I come to make an announcement. Shadow the Hedgehog's a bitch-ass motherfucker. He pissed on my fucking wife.
Just like Make 'em Up House, this was another episode that had to go through some major rewrites. This was supposed to be a regular 22-minute episode, but for whatever reason it got trimmed down to only 13 minutes. Don't know why they couldn't have just got rid of Where There's a Will, There's a Way, because spoilers, that episode sucks too. Kinda wish we got a full 22-minute episode of this where Bendy gets punished, but as for what we got, it's...
Ooh. That's kind of small.
Here's another unsurprising pick for one of the worst episodes, The Little Penis. This takes place at the same time of The Big Cheese, where everyone gets locked outside of Foster's because Mr. Harriman is a big dumb baka. Anyway, instead of seeing everyone try and get Cheese to give them the code to the house, we follow the small imaginary friend named Peas. He first tries to get Cheese out of the house and then tries to unlock the front door so everyone can get back inside. The concept itself actually isn't bad. Getting to see the same episode but from a different character's perspective is interesting. However, there's one major problem, which is that it's so incredibly boring.
This is so boring.
First off, Peas sucks. He doesn't have any character flaws. He's boring, unfunny, but more importantly, annoying. For whatever reason, he sounds like Mickey Mouse with Terminal 7, and it gets irritating hearing this over and over again.
You got it, Frankie! Gonna be on TV, gonna get adopted. Gonna be happy, all cause of Frankie. My ears.
The thing that's so frustrating about Peas is that he's another idea that's actually not half bad. Showing what Foster's is like through his tiny perspective is pretty cool, and it seems like it'd make for a somewhat interesting episode. However, like I said, it's ruined because Peas is super annoying and not a very entertaining character. Another problem is that I always feel like watching The Big Cheese over this. Spoilers, but The Big Cheese is great, so to have an enormous gap in quality between these episodes only makes this that much worse. It's one thing if The Big Cheese was just good and this one was only alright, but no, it's literally night and day.
Alone at last.
What the fuck? The last big problem is how pointless it is. It's basically a filler episode. Literally nothing here has any effect on The Big Cheese except for one thing. So at the end of The Big Cheese, the news station comes and sees that Foster's looks like California. Frankie then spins this around by saying that Foster's has always been like this, and if people want the help, then they can donate money. Well, it turns out that Frankie wasn't the one who thought of this, but instead it was a little green sperm cell. This is super frustrating, forced, and more importantly makes Frankie look like an idiot. Back in the original episode, this was a satisfying moment for her since she spent so much time trying to get everyone back in the house. She ended up failing, but at least she was able to salvage this by getting people to donate to Foster's. This showed that Frankie doesn't give up and is also pretty smart at times. However, here we find out that's not the case since this was all Pea's idea.
Sprinkle, sprinkle, little bar, what I wonder is a cat.
To give some credit, it's not as detestable as the last episodes, especially since it is so unique. Trying to match the quality of a great episode while also doing something new and distinct isn't a bad idea, but again, it just didn't work out here. So far, there hasn't been any surprises on the list, but this might be the first. Ticket to Rod has Blue wanting to win tickets to Keanu Reeves' newest movie, however, Frankie wins them instead and decides to take Mac with her. This results in Blue trying to find a way to see the movie, which he eventually does, but then hates it and thinks he saw the wrong movie. So then he sneaks into another premiere of it, but then Keanu Reeves throws him out, and now he's happy because Keanu Reeves threw him out. If there's one major problem with this episode, it's that it's a giant mess.
Big mouth.
The plot is sort of all over the place and feels feels like multiple different episodes thrown together. Blue wants to get tickets to a movie, Frankie gets the tickets, he can't go, tries going with someone else which works, but then he hates the movie. When I explain the premise, it sounds like there's a lot going on here, but while actually watching the episode, it feels like not much is happening. It feels very slow paced, and yeah, Foster's episodes are typically a bit slower since nearly every episode is 22 minutes. However, the main problem is that it's not funny, like at all. Maybe there was one or two jokes that were sort of alright, but I really can't remember anything. It's such a boring and forgettable episode. In fact, that reminds me, I don't think I ever saw this before. There's episodes that I vaguely and barely remember, but I don't remember this whatsoever. Then again, maybe I did see this once, but that just goes to show how flat and forgettable this is. Another problem is Blue, since he's sort of just there. He's not awful, but he also isn't sympathetic either. He's annoying and dislikable at times, but I feel like that's mostly due to the episode being really unfunny. I don't think he deserves to be this miserable since he didn't do that much wrong. In fact, what was it that made Blue deserve to be treated like this? Yeah, he was annoying and all, but he didn't really do anything majorly wrong or scummish. I guess at the end, he does get his happy ending, but yeah, my head sort of hurts just thinking about this. Like I said, this episode is a big fucking mess, and it's hard to gather my thoughts on it since they're all over the place. I kind of want to rank this higher because I feel like it isn't that awful, but at the same time, I can't really think of anything it does right and think it should go lower too. Also, this just makes me want to watch a Ticketmaster from Pony, which is a much better episode.
You're not going to Europe!
Yet another episode that's widely regarded as one of the worst, although I don't hate it as much as most people do. Foster's Goes to Europe has Foster's, not go to Europe. Instead, the whole episode is spent with them preparing to go to Europe. So yeah, that's kind of the big problem here. The premise is really fucking stupid, and Foster's Going to Europe sounds like a great episode. Think of all the things the gang could end up doing. Maybe they get in trouble or something, and it's sort of a repeat of Store Wars. I don't know, but either way, anything would have been better than what we got, which is basically another Mac torture corn. Mac wants to leave for the trip, but no one is packed, so he spends all day trying to get everyone ready to go. Eventually, everyone is finally ready, but once they get to the airport, Mac realizes that he doesn't have their tickets since Madame Foster stole them.
Wow, what an asshole.
Yeah, so not only is this annoying, unsatisfying, and frustrating, but it's also extremely out of character for Madame Foster. She can be a bit selfish and crazy at times, but this is something I can never see her doing. She literally stole over $5,000 worth of tickets from everyone, including her own goddamn granddaughter. Also, doesn't she have a decent amount of money? Couldn't she just buy her own tickets? Anyway, there are some funny moments such as Ed struggling to take only one stuffed animal, Wilt packing basically nothing, and Coco sabotaging the bus. There's also this new character called Eurotrice who's a fun and memorable side character. You feel so bad for her since all she wants to do is see her creator, even though we find out that she hates her too. Wish there was a sequel episode where they actually go to Europe. Maybe that would have made this episode slightly better, although I guess we'll never know. Anyway, really bad episode, although again, I don't think it's a contender for the absolute worst.
Alright guys, welcome to Sex on a Plane prank.
Someone farted in the house, so now everyone leaves Foster's and stays at a hotel overnight. Blueback's really annoying for the first couple minutes, but then Ed, Wilt, and Coco prank him, which pisses him off. So then for the remainder of the episode, Blue tries to prank them, although nothing seems to work. This is sort of similar to Ticket to Ride, where it's mainly just unfunny and boring, although it's not nearly as messy as it. The plot is very basic, and it's easy to see why it doesn't work. Blue is obnoxious for the first act, but then they try to make him sympathetic later on, which doesn't really work. It's sort of satisfying seeing Blue fail at pranking them, but at the same time, you start feeling kinda bad for him. Like, yeah, these are all just pranks that don't amount to much, but eventually Blue gets pranked into cleaning the entire hotel out of fear. I don't know, Blue is very mixed here. I hate him during the first half, but then during the second, I'm mainly lukewarm on him. I don't really care what happens to him. He could either continue to lose or end up winning. Doesn't matter to me. There's also these two new characters called Freddy and Fazbear, who are these two stupid idiot bakas that don't do anything and are nothing but a waste of space.
Bitch! Bitch! Bitch!
The concept isn't that bad, the setting is unique, but it's just not fun to watch. The problem is that the pranks are funny to the characters, but not to the viewer, except for this.
Then you wait until someone's on the other side of the door and you...
Wilt being the one who was behind all the pranks was unexpected and kinda funny, I guess. Also, this is the one and only episode in the whole series that Mac isn't in for some reason. Don't know why that is, but then again, I don't think him being here would make that much of a difference. But who knows, maybe if they replaced Freddy and Fazbear with Mac and had the two of them go up against Wilt, Coco, and Ed, that would have been better. Actually, now that I think about it, that does sound a lot better, especially if it was written well, but I guess we'll never see it. Thanks, Obama. Foster's is going to Six Flags, but Blue is tired of waiting for everyone, so he goes with Madam Foster since she's already leaving. However, before they get to Six Flags, she stops at the sewing store and, yeah, she just stays there the entire time and Blue is bored out of his mind. Unfortunately, I feel just as bored as Blue here since basically nothing happens for more than half the episode. Blue is stuck in the stupid store and he spends so much time messing around with stuff to keep himself entertained. Now, to give credit where credit is due, making an episode like this is very challenging. You have to make Blue bored, but you also can't make the viewer bored, which is easier said than done. Honestly, this could have easily been 11 minutes with some minor tweaking and it probably would have been pretty decent. Or if they had to keep it at 22 minutes, then they could have made much more of the episode about Blue trying to escape. That's what he does during the last few minutes, and guess what? It's actually kind of fun. It's satisfying seeing Blue learn to sew and make all these things to leave and get into Six Flags. It's also great seeing Madam Foster get stuck paying for everything Blue used since she deserved it. Yeah, for whatever reason, she's super unlikable here since she wastes so much time sitting around and doing nothing. Blue and her are buddies and she says they need to stay with each other and help each other out. That's not inherently a bad thing, however she doesn't seem to follow this mindset since all she cares about is herself. She doesn't care that Blue is bored out of his mind and wants to leave, especially since he didn't do anything wrong. The worst he did was ditch Mac, which yeah, that's pretty bad, but it doesn't merit him being this miserable for a full episode. Anyway, Blue does try to leave earlier on, but Madam Foster seems to always know when since the main entrance has a bell on it. But how would she know that it's Blue who's trying to leave and not someone else? So what? Are you saying that she glances over every time someone walks in and out of the store? Also, why does she even care about him leaving in the first place? What does she get out of him being here? All she's doing is sewing with her friend. She probably doesn't even know where he is half the time. Anyway, pretty boring and forgettable, but at least the last couple minutes are alright.
Pokemon go to the polls!
What should I do?
Why don't you just stay here?
I'm on it.
Oh boy, this one was really sad to go back to because I remembered being super excited to watch it back when it first premiered on TV. For those who don't know or even remember, this episode was part of a big Cartoon Network event called Invaded. Basically, it was a week-long event where 5 series had a new episode that centered around aliens. The 5 shows were Ed, Edd and Eddy, My Gym Partner's a Monkey, Camp Lazlo, Billy and Mandy, and of course Foster's. Now besides Billy and Mandy, all these shows are very bizarre picks. Dexter's Lab, Courage, and Powerpuff Girls would have been much more fitting choices, but obviously this was 2007 and by then all those shows ended. Then again, Ben 10 and Kids Next Door were still releasing new episodes, so they would have worked better too. Anyway, as for the episode itself, it's unfortunately not so good. In fact, it's pretty awful. The main problem is... yeah, Cheese is horrendously annoying here. Now I like Cheese. He works great in episodes like Mac Daddy, Infernal Slumber, and for the most part, the Big Cheese. That's because most of the jokes center around him being weird, plus there's multiple different kinds of jokes such as him liking cereal, chocolate milk, and saying random shit too.
Hi, kitty.
The second big reason why he works is because while he's annoying to the characters, he's not annoying to the viewer. Plus, seeing characters react to him is great. That's a huge part of why Cheese became so popular in the first place. He's someone that works best when he's paired with much more normal characters, although it is fun seeing him interact with Goo and Coco. However, this episode fails to understand any of this, since all you'll be hearing is this.
My ears,
Besides saying the word no one singular time, he literally just repeats this one phrase 545 times.
What the fuck?
How did anyone writing this think this was good, funny, or entertaining? It's fucking obnoxious. Even if you try to ignore Cheese, the rest of it isn't much better. Frankie drives around doing errands like picking up Blue from the movies, Ed who's drunk off sleeping gas, and going to court to see Madam Foster. She's there because Jackie ate her sandwich, which, while kind of funny, is also really confusing. Like, I get that it's supposed to be a dumb joke and all, but it's a plotline that lasts for multiple minutes. More importantly, Madam Foster is the owner of the house. Can't she just punish Jackie herself or have Harriman punish him? There's also another side plot where Blue thinks Cheese is an alien, which... okay. This is without a doubt one of the worst written episodes, easily a bottom 3. There's a bunch of random side plots, nothing seems connected or cohesive, things sort of just happen because they do, plus the ending is frustrating too.
Where does Cheese have to go?
I don't know. Sometimes he just likes to go.
Despite hearing Cheese scream, gotta go to the polls for 20 minutes straight, we don't even get the satisfaction of knowing where Cheese had to go. Now, despite all my problems with it, and even stating that it's probably a bottom 3 episode in terms of writing, I still consider it better than the previous ones. There's some funny moments, but more importantly, it's not boring. The pacing is pretty fast, there's always something happening, and it might just be me, but I find this to be fascinatingly bad. Again, it's so poorly written, annoying, and unsatisfying, but it's one big mess that I somehow find kind of entertaining. That's something I can't really say about episodes like The Little Penis and Ticket to Rod. Anyway, if you despise this, I can see why, but I can also see if people find it to be sort of a guilty pleasure too.
Bye, have a great time.
What is up with cartoon series getting such shitty finales? Kids Next Door's was bad, Teen Titans was quite possibly the absolute worst finale ever, and Foster's is pretty poo-poo too. Basically, everyone dislikes this. It's not considered to be a dumpster fire like others, but it's widely regarded to be bad. The main problem is that it's literally just a nothing burger, since, nothing happens. Mac is supposedly moving away, and now everyone thinks he's going to leave Blue and never return to Foster's. But of course it's revealed that he was just moving next door in his apartment, and it turns out his neighbor Louise was moving away instead, which means...
Now we're brother roomies!
What the fuck?
First off, the concept is really stupid. It's super obvious that Mac isn't going to move and leave Blue, meaning you're just waiting for that to be revealed at the very end. This wouldn't be such a big problem if it was fun, but of course it's not. Most of it has Blue being miserable, which I don't mind if he deserves it, but here he doesn't, and it's actually really sad. Blue genuinely believes that he isn't going to see Mac again, so he does his best to make Mac happy and let him do whatever he wants. However, Mac wants to do things that either Blue doesn't like or doesn't involve him. Nothing seems to go right for Blue, and it ends up being depressing, unfunny, and more so frustrating. To give credit where credit is due, this is another episode that managed to make me feel really bad for Blue. They do a good job at making Blue be sort of a dick, but still being very sympathetic, since again, he thinks he's never going to see Mac again. That being said, while not huge, this is still another issue, since this is sort of a rehash of a previous episode Pride to Be, except done worse. That had Blue believe Mac was getting married, meaning he was growing up and wouldn't be seeing Blue again. This time though, it's everyone that mistakes Mac leaving, which is different, although I'd argue not different enough.
Finished now?
No! And the whining that the clock will not make me go any faster.
Not sure if I'd say this is a positive or not, but at the very least, this does give us an ending to the series. It would have been underwhelming to end on just a regular episode, but then again, I'd rather have another good or even just alright one than this. However, while not officially the ending, some fans, including myself, consider Destination Imagination to be the series' true finale. If this video gets you in the mood to rewatch the series, then do yourself a huge favor and save that for last. Anyway, since this is the finale, there's a bunch of references to past episodes, which I'm sort of mixed on. The subtle ones, like the scoreboard friend from Good Will Hunting and the big ass cage from the first episode, are nice, but there's a chunk of moments where Blue outright says the plots of episodes.
We can start a newspaper, or go to the mall, or go camping, or build an indoor water slide, or post embarrassing footage of Harriman on the internet, or go to Europe.
Like, I get it, this is the last episode, but just name dropping past episodes doesn't mean anything. Reminding me about past episodes also doesn't work, because it makes me want to watch most of them over this instead.
Except Europe.
Couldn't the series finale be about a lot, or even some of these characters getting adopted, like Wilt, Coco, or Ed? I get that they all want to stay together since they're friends, but the whole reason they're at Foster's is to get adopted. They tried this plotline a few episodes ago in Read 'em and Weep, which I'll get to shortly, but basically it's kind of... This is gonna sound dumb, but maybe they actually could have had Mac move away, although that would have been super depressing, but at least it'd be shocking. Wasn't that the whole point of the 2 worst episodes anyway, to be shocking and nothing more? Anyway, unlike something like Teen Titans that had an overarching narrative, Foster's didn't, so having the series end like this shouldn't be this frustrating. But the problem is that there's clearly better as well as more interesting ways for the series to end. It also doesn't help that this is just a regular 22-minute episode. For a series that had 2 TV movies and a 45-minute special, you'd think that at the very least they'd end off with another 45-minute special. But I guess they either didn't care, Cartoon Network wouldn't let them, or maybe there were time restraints. Who knows? Anyway, the house being drawn in reverse as well as the thank you card at the end is nice, but it doesn't make up for all the other problems. Foster's finale is underwhelming, wasted, had potential to be something different, as well as bigger and more importantly better.
No, be assertive!
Yet another unsurprising listing. Just like the last entry, this one is widely considered to be bad. Wilt wants to watch the newest episode of Sex and the City, but can't since he gets distracted by everyone asking him to help and do favors for them. The main problem is that it's frustrating and kind of depressing. You feel really bad for Wilt since he's such a nice guy and can't bring himself to say the word no! Guess I dislike this so much because it's disappointing as Wilt's first episode, mainly because we already know how nice he is, so this isn't showing us anything new. He does finally say no, but it still ends with him helping out Blue, so nothing really changed. Thankfully, it's only 11 or actually 8 minutes long, but still, that's not really a compliment. Get what they were going for here. Again, it's not horrible, can see if some people find it okay, but I'm not one of them.
The Book of Sega Genesis.
I didn't take the last piece of German chocolate cake. I didn't belch into the loudspeaker on Mother's Day. I didn't assassinate the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Mac has an overdue library book since someone stole his library card, so he gets Jackie Cones to help him out. Jackie is a fan favorite character, so it's not that surprising that he'd eventually get his own episode. He usually works best in short scenes or as a quick one-off joke, but having a full episode about him seems like a big step up. Not saying a Jackie episode can't work, I think it could've, but this one just doesn't. The big problem is that out of all the characters, he's paired with Mac, which doesn't make for a very fun or interesting episode. Mac is a pretty standard kid. He's usually good-hearted and the voice of reason, which is why he works so well with Blue. But with Jackie, he just doesn't have good chemistry with him. Maybe that's because Mac and Jackie aren't that interesting of characters, or maybe the writing and jokes aren't strong, but either way something clearly doesn't work. Jackie being with someone like Blue, Harriman, or even the Pink Chungus would have been at the very least better. Feel like there's a lot more they could have done there than with Mac. The song is pretty fun, and the twist at the end where it's revealed that Jackie took Mac's card instead of Blue actually works well. But besides those things, this is just sort of boring and forgettable.
I wanna go home.
Many friends recently got adopted and are now living with their new families. However, every single one of them seems to be having some kind of problem, so they all end up coming back to fosters. First off, the premise of someone getting adopted, but then realizing that they don't enjoy their new life is actually not half bad. It could have been similar to Stench of Success, where Blue likes being an actor, but then misses his friends and wants to go back. However, that would have worked if it centered on only one character, like maybe Eduardo or Wilt. In fact, now that I think about it, that would have made for a pretty good episode. Wilt finally gets adopted, but by someone who takes advantage of his kindness. This makes him realize that he should think more about himself at times instead of always worrying about others. So he leaves his new asshole owner and comes back to fosters. Basically, it'd be sort of a reimagining of Where There's a Wilt There's a Way, but obviously much better.
Enough already! I do not think ghosts communicate through videotape.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
Anyway, the big problem is that somehow everyone hates or has a problem with their new life, which is completely unrealistic and dumb. This is the third to last episode of the series, so wouldn't it have been satisfying to see some of these side characters get at least some kind of conclusion? Eduardo I understand since he's a main character and all, but don't you think Jackie Cones fans would have wanted to see their favorite character be happy with a new kid?
Dear pesky plumbers.
The one great thing here is Blue. He genuinely misses Eduardo and wants him back. Despite being a dick and even scumbag at times, deep down Blue does care for his friends. Just wish we got to see more of this throughout the show.
He's the angry video game nerd.
I've got a full bladder, half an idea where I'm going. It's Tuesday, and I'm wearing sunglasses.
Hit it.
Blue thinks Mac is a nerd, so he tries to make him cool and hip with the kids. Pretty dumb, as well as super predictable. Of course, Mac realizes that it doesn't matter what others think of him as long as his real friends like him for who he is. The jokes are hit or miss. There's some really good ones, like how Harriman starts celebrating once he realizes Blue can be put up for adoption. But then there's other ones, like Mac embarrassing himself at school. The characters find Mac funny, but as a viewer, I don't really get much from it. Don't even find it that cringy either. The ending is also annoying too. Blue calls Mac a nerd, despite him humiliating himself by sticking up for Blue. Anyway, pretty sure most people don't like this one. The premise is bad, although there are some fun moments, so it's not a complete waste of time.
Then why do I have a picture of you wearing ugly, taped-up Coke bottle glasses?
You drew those on me with a marker, plus a mustache.
Technically, most of our imaginary friends are nude.
Hey, I guess you're right. Pantsless Joe?
It's Adopt-a-Thought Saturday, meaning a bunch of friends are getting adopted. However, Mac and Blue don't want them to leave, so they do everything they can to keep everyone inside. Now, I get what they were going for here. Mac and Blue made new friends at Foster's, and it's obviously sad to see some of them go. However, they're still clearly in the wrong for preventing everyone from getting adopted. Everyone at Foster's enjoys being there, but what they want most is to be with the new kid that needs them the most. Blue doing this is one thing, but for Mac, this seems very out of character, even for a very early episode. Again, he's a kid and all. I get that, but Mac should realize that what he's doing is wrong. What makes this worse is that they don't even realize their mistake since it ends with them being tied up. Blue not learning could be one thing, but at the very least have Mac figure out that what he was doing was wrong.
What is going on?
Another big problem that I can't see anyone defending is why the friends go inside without struggling. Also, when they are inside, why don't they just, you know, walk back outside? Coco is the only one who seems to do this, but literally everyone else stays inside because why not? They also could have told Mac and Blue that they wanted to get adopted, which could have led to them realizing that they're wrong for doing this. There's also this part where Madam Foster finds out what the two of them are doing. However, she doesn't seem to care and actually encourages them to continue, which seems very dumb and out of character. Like, I get it, it's a joke and all, but her not wanting friends to get adopted is just baffling.
No meanies, nothing me to sing your mark.
Despite its flaws, it still has a chunk of memorable moments. It's fun seeing how quickly everything escalates. Eduardo scares everyone away, everyone gets locked up in the house, Blue gets chased by all the kids, etc. Not awful, can see people enjoying it to a certain extent, but Mac and Blue being painfully in the wrong holds it back from being good.
Shut up! I'm trying to sleep!
Stop and be quiet, you're gonna wake everybody up!
What is going on?
This is a big hot take, but I did not enjoy this on my rewatch, which I hate to say because as a kid, I remembered really enjoying this. The gang have a slumber party at Mac's apartment, which is a problem since Terrence and his mom are sleeping. This means Mac needs to keep everyone from waking up his mom, otherwise she might prevent him from ever seeing Blue again. With this, we basically get another Mac torture corn, although obviously not nearly as awful as the last two. My biggest problem is the stakes, or a lack thereof, since Terrence and Mac's mom don't seem to wake up despite everyone making a shit ton of noise. Everyone is either screaming, crying, moving a goddamn refrigerator, and a bunch of other stuff, but somehow Mac's mom doesn't wake up. Terrence does much later on, but again, realistically the two of them should have been up after like 2 minutes of everyone being there. This is also sort of a repeat of Burglar Alarm from Powerpuff Girls, where a burglar breaks into the girl's house, but they have to get rid of him without waking the professor. The reason that worked was because everyone was mostly whispering throughout the episode, plus their house is much bigger than Mac's apartment. The girls do end up flying around the house and the burglar does scream once, but at least the whole staying quiet thing was sort of believable there. Now you could say that I'm taking this way too seriously, which I'll admit I might, but that might be due to the first 2/3 being pretty annoying. Like I said, this is another Mac torture corn, and I basically feel like Mac while watching this. Ed taking photos and Wilt cleaning are sort of funny the first time, but after that it becomes pretty annoying. Goo and Coco come later on, and even Cheese, which is when I'd say the episode starts to get good. Cheese is great. Terrence finally wakes up and everyone tries to prevent him from waking up Mac's mom. But then she does wake up shortly after to get ready for work, so Mac has to keep her from leaving her room and seeing everyone. The jokes are pretty good, there's actual stakes now, and Mac being complimented by his mom at the end is nice too. But despite the third act being good, I find the first 2/3 annoying.
This is like my dream apartment, except instead of this color walls, mine are macaroni yellow, and instead of the second floor, it'd be deep underground, and instead of that ceiling, it'd be glass, so you could watch molten lava float by in the earth.
Shut up!
Maybe this would have worked better if everyone came after school and the stakes were to not get caught by Terrence and then get everyone to leave before Mac's mom got home. The setting is unique and it is fun seeing so many characters like Terrence, Cheese, and Goo be in one episode like this. Anyway, not that bad. I can see people enjoying it, but I just have too many problems with it. Mac and Blue try to help a friend named Ivan find his kid. Ivan is kind of annoying, mainly because he's screaming half the time, which sucks since they got Kevin McDonald to voice him, who's always great. For some reason, Ed, Walt, and Coco are pissed at Blue for ditching them while playing hide and seek. First off, the episode starts with Blue looking for them, so it's not like he was a dick and forgot. Plus, the reason he ditches them is because he's now busy trying to help Ivan look for his kid, which is much more important. Also, this is what causes them, especially Walt, to be this mad at Blue. I know this is early in season 2, but still, this is nothing compared to what he's done later on. They also get the idea that Mac abandoned Blue and got Terrence to beat him up, which, while kinda funny, is also pretty dumb and forced too. Anyway, having a blind kid make a friend to help him see is a nice idea, but besides that, along with some good jokes here and there, it's sort of just forgettable but harmless.
I got phone.
Not now, Eduardo. Can't you see I'm on the phone?
Blue wants to impress everyone by saving a friend, but he ends up bringing home a guy in a phone suit. This is another one of the 6 11-minute episodes, and just like the last one, it's sort of just there and kind of forgettable. Blue is sort of a dick, but it works because he's doing his own thing by himself and no one really seems to care. The jokes come from Blue being so self-absorbed in himself instead of annoying others, unlike in the next episode, which is...
And the other thing is that when I'm fucking singing in, it sounds even better!
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Stop! What's going on here?
Breakfast! Floppy Pants and a couple other friends make a band called Pizza Party, which Blue wants to join but can't since he sucks. He then makes a band with Wilt, Ed, and Coco, but then leaves that and performs by himself, which ends up not working. I think this might also be a hot take since I believe people like this episode, but there's one big thing that ruins it, which is Blue. He's annoying, unfunny, and dislikable. He starts by trying to take over Pizza Party, then acts like an asshole towards Wilt, Ed, and Coco. Him getting humiliated during the concert was actually pretty satisfying, although I didn't care for when everyone stepped in and helped him out. Like, I get it, you don't want to end on Blue getting shit on and all, but he pretty much deserved it. Pizza Party's crew also isn't anything special. Finding out that Floppy Pants can sing is something, but besides that, none of them are that interesting or fun. That being said, the song is actually kinda good and catchy.
First I fuck my sister, then I fuck my mom.
Blue thinks Mac is growing up and getting married.
That's right. Married.
This is a really weird episode. It's not that funny and the first act is super slow, but it gets a pass mainly because of how good of a concept it is. Blue believing that Mac is growing up and leaving him for good is genuinely great, and it's interesting seeing how he reacts to this. He may do things that Mac clearly doesn't like, but he has a good reason for doing so since again, he thinks he'll never see Mac again. Kind of reminds me of the Fairly Odd Parents, where instead of kids growing up and not needing their fairies, they instead don't need their imaginary friends anymore. Anyway, it's super predictable. Obviously Mac isn't getting married, Blue's attempts to please Mac don't work, and like I already said, it's not the most entertaining episode. But what it does right, it does pretty well, which is seeing Blue try not to lose Mac.
Lies, yeah.
What's good, Nyuka?
Ed lies to all the babies at Foster, saying that he's a super cool guy, meanwhile Blue is a big fat baby. Finding out how much Ed looks up to Blue is neat, and it's also kind of funny that the only people that look up to him are a bunch of babies. Blue being so bothered by being called a baby is pretty funny, and if Ed didn't show up, he'd probably be there all day whining since he's a baka. Anyway, not much to say. Decent Ed episode, jokes are alright, especially this one where Ed Bill Cosby's Blue.
Wait, what are you? Oh my, what? Turning you into a monster. A hideous monster!
Ed is tired of being called a baby, so he goes with Terrence to a junkyard where he fights other imaginary friends to prove that he's no baby. This is another one that's probably going to be a hot take, but this one is just okay.
Okay.
Terrence and Ed being paired together sounds great, and it does have its moments, but my main issue is how much of a baby Ed is. Like, I get it, Ed has always been a pussy and all, but here it's much more exaggerated. Then again, he is put in more scary situations, like fighting big and strong imaginary friends, so I guess it makes sense. Probably wouldn't complain about this, but the ending really bothers me. Ed learns to be brave by saving everyone from a Pikachu, which is a really solid moment, but then it's followed by him getting scared by a frisbee. Like, I get it, it's a quick gag and all, but it's also kind of annoying and frustrating not to see him stay developed. Anyway, the Dexter and Ed's cameo is amazing, but besides that and some other solid jokes, I'm not a huge fan, but can definitely see others enjoying this a lot more.
This Christmas feels like the very first Christmas to me. One present? But Moisha said we get 8.
No, I said I get 8.
The Christmas special where Mac doubts Santa being real, meanwhile Blue tries to get Harriman to cancel Christmas at Foster's. This has always been a Christmas special I enjoyed, but not one I loved or needed to see every year. Going back to it now, it's alright, but I wouldn't say it's anything more than that. Also, despite me watching this in December, which is the best time to watch it, I didn't enjoy it any more than I would have any other time of the year. Anyway, both plot lines are fine, jokes are fine, pacing is fine, it's just a very fine episode. It doesn't really do anything exceptional. The only minor complaint is that the ending is kind of jarring since the entire episode was so melodramatic, but then at the very end it's a big huge happy ending. Blue also gets a bunch of coal, which should be fine, although Terrence doesn't for whatever reason. Blue tried to ruin Christmas, which is pretty bad, although throughout the year Terrence is much worse than Blue. Honestly, I'm gonna guess and say the writers just didn't think of this, which is fine. Since the episode isn't about Terrence, it's more focused on Mac and Blue.
Imagination.
I baked you a pie.
Everyone plays pretend while the power is out, but then Goop becomes so invested in it that she ends up creating some imaginary friends in her sleep who also want to kill everyone. My main problem is how slow the first act is. The first 7 minutes
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
have everyone playing pretend, which, while very important to the plot, isn't that interesting. It's another one of those cases where the characters are having a lot of fun, but personally as a viewer, I'm not. Once the purple guys are here, the episode gets notably better, although there's still a big problem. Couldn't Goo imagine more, or at least one imaginary friend that was stronger than the purple guys? Maybe it's because she doesn't want to make any more friends since her imagination is out of control. But considering her friends could have been killed, I think this is one big exception. Anyway, yet another one where I might not be a huge fan, but can see others liking this considerably more.
Maybe I'll be low-key. Already killed low-key.
There's a new hero called Imaginary Man who saves the day and later makes Mac a sidekick. Blue becomes jealous, so he teams up with Imaginary Man's nemesis called, Nemesis. This is definitely one of the most distinct episodes. It's a superhero episode, which is pretty out there for a series like Foster's. Then again, Craig made the Powerpuff Girls, so he clearly has an interest in them. Anyway, Imaginary Man and Nemesis are sort of just alright. They don't suck, but they aren't that memorable. Mac and Blue, on the other hand, are actually handled really well here. Blue is kind of a dick for being jealous of Mac hanging out with Imaginary Man, but at the same time, Mac isn't perfect this time around. He begins putting all his time and attention on Imaginary Man and doesn't seem to care for Blue that much. So Blue has a pretty good reason for acting the way he does and eventually turning evil during the third act. Really cool to see Frankie and everyone go around trying to stop a huge imaginary friend from destroying the city. This kind of breaks the world though, since anyone could imagine something huge like this and blow everything up. Couldn't Putin imagine a big ass monster or bomb and have it make Ukraine go boom boom or something? Anyway, this is another episode that I can see people liking more, but for me, it's just alright, although that twist at the end is pretty good.
That's right, boys. Mondo cool.
Coco leaves Foster's and goes around the world doing a bunch of things like becoming a teacher, singer, leader of Japan, and even fucking a snowman.
What the fuck?
Basically, it's like one super long and extended montage, except there's in-depth scenes and dialogue throughout it. Also, what's up with Craig and having his characters talk to squirrels? Is this just supposed to be a really subtle reference to Bubbles? Anyway, surprised they were able to make a full episode about Coco despite her only being able to say one line. Blue makes Harriman learn to relax, however it leads to Foster's turning to shit. Pretty cool concept and kinda surprised it took 5 whole seasons to come up with this plotline. Despite not being a fan of Harriman, this shows that although he is a dick, he takes his job so seriously for a reason, otherwise this would happen.
You need to learn how to laugh at yourself.
Harriman learns to take it easy only after seeing Blue suffer, which is pretty messed up but also funny. We all knew he was an asshole, but it seems that the only thing he gets pleasure from is seeing other people be in pain. Anyway, this sort of reminds me of Setting a Precedent, where Harriman loses control of the house. That's a much better episode, although the ending here is considerably stronger since it's not rushed and anticlimactic.
You're old. Visiting hours are over.
Blue gets mistaken for an old man and begins living in a retirement home. Kind of dumb how the staff member doesn't realize it's Blue since he's been trying to get in all day long. Like, really? You're saying you don't recognize this small blue asshole from earlier?
What are you, fucking retarded?
Blue being this absorbent is weird and it's never used or mentioned again, but then again his skin turns white when he's sick. So maybe there's a bunch of other things Blue's body can do that we don't know of. Anyway, we find out that Madame Foster hates retirement homes because she thinks they brainwash you. She might be wrong about that, but she is right about retirement home sucking, cause when I get old and shit my pants, I'm not going to no retirement home. My wife, kids, and grandkids are gonna be taking care of me whether they like it or not.
Because you too fits where the blue fits.
Check this out.
Your mama's so gay. She got a penis.
Blue wants to go to a water park, but it's raining, so now everyone stays inside making YouTube videos. YouTube has been around since 2005, but even so, it's still surprising to see it be in an episode that was released in 2008, and it was probably written in 2007. Anyway, it's nice seeing these characters make dumb videos just for fun, instead of doing cringe like Mr. Beast X Rizzler in Ohio, or whatever it is the kids are into these days. There's this one video they make where they're playing with a bunch of toys and it reminded me of that one really old video called Ben 10 vs. Godzilla. Bet most of you hipsters watching this are too young to know what that is, but if you're curious then go watch it after this video. Anyway, one complaint I've seen about this is that Blue is annoying and unlikable, which I don't agree with. Like, yeah, he isn't great here, but he doesn't ruin everyone else's fun. He bitches and moans about the water park all day long, but everyone else is still able to make videos without him. Blue is also so obsessed with the park that he creates his own indoor water slide, which is pretty insane, especially since Frankie and Harriman somehow didn't notice.
Shut the hell up, bitch.
Singapore.
You mean Singapore?
Yeah, that's right. All the way in Wisconsin.
Duchess finally gets adopted.
What do we do now?
Pretty sure this is mixed by fans. Some hate it and some love it. I remember really liking this as a kid, but now it's pretty standard. Duchess getting adopted is a great concept since literally no one would want to adopt her. The family that does is so insane. You literally can't do anything to piss them off. You can take a gigantic gorilla dump on their floor and they'll be happy. Anyway, despite this being a lot of fun, it's only like this for about half the episode. The first couple minutes are spent solely on Duchess being an asshole, although you kind of need this so new viewers realize why people hate her so much. The big problem though is its third act, which is where the episode kinda falls apart. Terrence realizes that Mac and Blue are bringing Duchess back to Foster, so he rushes over and somehow beats them. It's one thing if Mac and Blue were really weak and were struggling to carry Duchess, but no, they seem to be running almost as fast as Terrence. Anyway, Terrence convinces everyone that Mac and Blue are coming with the stinky one, which everyone just believes and doesn't question why. Like, really? It's already out of character for them to believe him, but to not even ask why is insane. I get that everyone is super happy now that Duchess is gone and all, but still, this is so out of character for them. He also has enough time to explain everything to them, and everyone has enough time to prepare to stop them, even though again, they were only a few minutes away. Another question that doesn't get answered is why Mac and Blue don't leave Duchess out on the street or leave her somewhere else. They didn't need to bring her back to Foster's. Maybe letting her starve to death outside would be too cruel, or maybe Duchess would have ended up coming back to Foster's on her own eventually. But then again, all Mac and Blue care about is getting Duchess out of the apartment, so who cares what happens to her afterwards. There's also this new dumb rule stating that any friend who enters the house can't be thrown out, which is retarded. You're saying that if a psychotic, deranged imaginary killer came in and tried to kill everyone, then they couldn't be thrown out unless they got adopted or left on their own? This rule also contradicts when Harriman said he'd throw Blue out and busted. The only argument to this is the rule was made after that episode, but either way, it's something that should have been mentioned. Then again, in the Abe Lincoln episode, the house was too crowded, which almost made Frankie and Madame Foster reject new friends from coming in. So what, was the rule made after busted, but then removed after this episode because everyone realized how stupid of a rule it was?
Yes.
The ending is also unsatisfying and mean-spirited too. Mac and Blue now have to suffer and take care of Duchess because they're the only ones who wanted her back. Like, I get it, it's supposed to end on a joke and all, but Mac and Blue didn't deserve this. Anyway, very mixed episode. Half of it is super fun, but the third act is sort of a big, yet still entertaining mess.
You don't even have any fur. Fleas need fur. Duh.
Ed has fleas, but Frankie and Harriman want to get rid of them because they're racist. This is one of the rare times where Frankie and Harriman actually work together and treat each other equally. Wish we got to see them act like this in more episodes, but then again, this does show how serious of a threat they think fleas are to the house. They try different ways to kill them, Blue almost kills them, and even the fleas get so pissed off that they threaten to strangle Harriman to death. Holy moly guacamole, this episode is pretty fucked up.
This one smells like strawberries. This one smells like beef.
Anyway, the ending is pretty predictable and also kind of dumb. It's obvious that the fleas aren't going to die and they're going to somehow end up staying at Foster's. However, them being imaginary is sort of an ass pull, even though them talking should be a big hint. But the thing is, these fleas can age and reproduce, which is something other imaginary friends can't do. Also, who the hell would imagine a flea as a friend, especially two? That's just dumb. Anyway, I never realized it until now, but this is sort of a rehash of Who Let the Dogs In. Ed has an imaginary friend that he tries to keep secret from everyone in the house, otherwise if they find out, he has to get rid of them. The main reason why this is so noticeable is because they're both Ed episodes and there's only, what, 5 of them in total? There's some clear differences between the two, and again, I didn't notice until writing this, so it's not much of an issue.
I wonder what's for dinner.
Oh, well, I guess...
He took his hedgehog fucking quilly dick out and he pissed on my fucking wife.
Mac and Blue are lost and can't find their way downstairs. Meanwhile, everyone is waiting since they can't eat dinner without them. Harriman is at one of his worst here. He's bad in other episodes, but forcing people to starve just because 2 people are missing is way too cruel and stupid. More importantly, in the last episode Busted, he let anyone eat breakfast until 9 AM, meaning anyone could start eating whenever the food was ready. They didn't have to wait for every single person in the house to be there to eat. There's probably hundreds of characters at Foster's anyway. How are they supposed to keep track of everyone, and are there even enough seats for them at the table too? What about Duchess? She's able to eat by herself, but then again, she's fucking ugly and everyone hates her, so maybe she's an exception. What about the food friends? They don't go downstairs for dinner, or are they an exception too? Either way, it's such a stupid enforced rule and it pisses me off more than it probably should. Madam Foster feeds everyone secretly, which is nice, but at the same time, you're the owner of the house. Why not just tell Harriman to fuck off and let everyone eat without Mac and Blue? Anyway, it's cool to see all these different parts of the house, especially since this is one of the first episodes, plus the food friends are cool world building as well.
Race to the finish.
Awesome! Yeah!
Mac and Blue race home to Foster's from the arcade. This is probably one of the most simple and straightforward plot lines, but it manages to work well. Not every joke lands. The old man and lady ones are pretty slow and unfunny, but there's others that genuinely caught me off guard.
The one thing every athlete's gotta have, electrolytes.
Yes, I can already feel these electric lights working.
The ending is kind of crazy too. Mac barely wins but ends up going to the hospital because he was exhausted and dehydrated. Now I'm kind of annoyed that Mac won, mainly because Blue lost it to everything and wasn't a dick here, so I feel like he deserved to win at least once. Also, Mac ended up using cheap tricks like Blue towards the end, so him winning doesn't feel that right either. However, there's one big gimmick with this episode, which is that it actually has an alternate ending, which I never knew about until making this video. Apparently, back when this first aired on TV, you could vote online for either Mac or Blue to win. The US voted for Mac, but some other countries voted for Blue, so depending on where you live, the ending is different, which is pretty cool. However, like I said, I still feel like Blue deserved to win, but that's just me. Also, the alternate ending isn't on the complete series DVD, which is really disappointing, but thankfully that's the only thing that's missing from it.
Let's gather around the campfire and sing our campfire song.
He means we gotta trap an animal.
Oh, to play with and make a part of our family?
Everyone goes camping, however shit hits the fan and everything goes wrong. There's one pretty big problem, which is Blue. This is him at one of his absolute worst. He's obnoxious, causes trouble for everyone by eating all their food, and doesn't get punished. The worst that happens to him is getting itchy from poison ivy and getting stung by bees. Despite Blue being a piece of shit, he doesn't ruin the episode, although he definitely holds it back from being a really solid or even great one. Then again, you kind of need Blue to act like this, otherwise there wouldn't be a conflict, although I'm sure the writers could have thought of something else. Coco doesn't lay more food, water, and other important stuff for everyone since she only lays whatever she feels like, which is pretty dumb. More importantly, how is everyone dumb enough not to realize that they're just in the backyard of the house? They could have gone inside for food, water, etc., but I guess that would ruin the point of camping.
It's coming up. It's there.
Everyone at Foster's dares each other to do various things. It's yet another very simple premise that works well, and it's fun seeing how quickly it all escalates into a big house tournament. Some of the dares are kinda bullshit though, like there's this one where Blue dares this guy to kick a ball for an hour even though physically he isn't able to. Dares should be something you're both physically and mentally able to do. The point of a dare should be to overcome an emotional barrier, like when Blue had to burn all his paddle balls or when Mac told Frankie he loved her. These are both dares made for and by Mac and Blue since they're both big dicks to each other during the second half. That being said, they both end up giving each other a great and genuine apology, which is probably the best part of the episode. Even if you're not a big fan of this one, you have to admit that this scene is pretty damn good. Blue accidentally breaks Madam Foster's bus, so he tries to find a way to fix it. The first act is literally just Harriman yelling at Blue and Frankie, like he's an asshole, but Jesus Christ, he's pretty awful here. He gets so mad at Blue that he threatens to throw him out of the house, which is just ridiculous. Blue's annoyed by all of Harriman's rules, which part of that is on him being sort of a dick, but at the same time, Harriman is way too strict on some things.
Master Beauregard?
No way.
May I remind you that at Foster's we use only 2 squares for each release?
Like what the Sigma? You're telling me that everyone only gets to use 2 squares of toilet paper to wipe their ass? What if someone has diarrhea? Or what if Frankie brought home Taco Bell or a McChicken sandwich? This is one of the dumbest rules in the house. Everyone probably has a rash on their ass by now and their underwear are probably stained too. You kind of need this episode though, since this is right after House of Blue, so getting to know all the house rules and seeing Blue learn them is necessary. Anyway, my main problem is that it takes so long for everyone to think of using glue, especially since Mac is there and he's supposed to be the smart one. That being said, it's still fun seeing all the different ways they try to fix the bust.
We've got to have money.
Foster's goes to a swap meet, but while they're there, Ed finds a $100 bill, so now everyone wants it for themselves since they're all greedy dirtbags. It's fun seeing all the different things everyone wants to buy with the money, especially Mac. He first tells Ed to spend it on whatever he wants, which makes sense, but then he wants Ed to buy him a bunch of Star Wars figures, which turns out to be the exact same ones which he sold back in One False Movie. Not only is that a fun callback, but this is also one of the rare times where Mac ends up being in the wrong. The same happens to Frankie. She first tells Ed to spend the money on what he wants, but then wants him to buy her a new car cleaner after toppling over him. Oh boy, all I'm saying is if Frankie toppled over me, I'd give her the money as well as a tip. Oh yeah. The ending is pretty good too. Everyone buys Ed the dollhouse he wanted, and it's also revealed that Ed has a shit ton of money, which is funny and a good twist.
What a twist!
Wow, Cookie Monster.
Oh my god!
Blue uses Madam Foster's cookie recipe to sell cookies and make a bunch of money because
we've got to have.
However, Blue becomes so full of himself and turns into a giant asshole, which is sort of a decent problem. Like, I get it, the point is for Blue to learn not to be a dick and all, but holy shit, he goes way too far. There's some pretty funny moments and all, but even so, it's hard to fully enjoy this when he's this much of a scumbag. He does give a solid apology at the end and clearly learns his lesson, but still, some of this is hard to watch. Couldn't Madam Foster tell Blue not to make and sell her cookies? She makes them once a year for a reason, but then again she did sign a contract, so that is her fault. Maybe if she didn't, then Frankie wouldn't have satisfied some people's eating fetishes. Then again, is that really such a bad thing?
You must die! When I'm through with you,
you'll have to be sitting down like a girl.
Blue calls the new guy at Foster's the N-word, so now he's gonna get killed at 4 o'clock. This is one that doesn't seem to get that much attention. Some people don't like it, but honestly, I think it's one of the more underrated episodes. Blue believes that he's going to die, which is pretty dark. In fact, as a kid, this episode kinda scared me. I wasn't terrified of it or anything, but at the very least, I felt nervous while watching it the first couple times. Even watching it today, there's some shots and scenes that are unsettling. There's a close-up shot of the new guy's eyes that are blood red. It's kind of funny now, but this was easily one of the scariest parts as a kid. Because Blue thinks he's going to die, the stakes are some of the highest they've ever been. No matter what he does, he can't seem to get away or stop the new guy. Terrence and even Ed get their asses handed to them, so if they can't do anything, then Blue is screwed. Now, despite loving some things about this, there are some criticisms people have which I can defend to a certain extent. The first being its pacing, since this is a bit on the slow side. There's some episodes that are slow and boring, but this is definitely not one of them. That's because if there's one word to describe this episode, it's thrilling. For like the third time now, Blue thinks he's going to die, so seeing him try not to die is pretty exciting and intense. Don't see how people find this boring. Even on a rewatch, I wasn't bored despite already remembering how it ends. The other complaint some people have is that Blue didn't really do anything wrong here, so his suffering feels undeserved. Yes, in this episode he didn't do anything wrong except for breaking all the clocks in the house, as well as mentioning other things he did in the past.
I thought Jolly Buttons.
Nope, me. I just framed Jolly.
We had him deported.
But besides that one thing, all he did was tell a harmless joke. For some reason, even Will gets upset by this, which seems really dumb and out of character. Like really, out of all the things Blue has said and done, this is what pisses you off the most? Anyway, this is a valid criticism, but the thing is, like Blue said, he's done some pretty bad things before, as well as in the future. So seeing him finally get punished, or at least being miserable, is kind of satisfying. Again, he really needed to do something here that made him deserve feeling like this, but I see it more along the lines of Worldwide Rabbit, where in that episode Harriman didn't really deserve to be embarrassed and scared. However, in past and future episodes he gets away with a lot of bullshit, so to see him get treated like this ends up being somewhat satisfying.
What do you think?
Kinda lame.
There's also the ending, which is funny, although kind of confusing too. It's another one of those that are funny, although it comes at a cost. Blue suffered throughout the whole episode, but in the end he survived because it turns out that the new guy looked up to him and liked his jokes. But then after everything that just happened, Blue gets punched. So, what was the point? What's the episode trying to say? You can be funny, just don't be a dick? I don't know, but either way it doesn't ruin what is a pretty intense episode.
You pissed on my fucking wife!
Harriman pretends to be married to Coco so he can get a donation from someone for fosters. Meanwhile, Blue learns what sarcasm is. A Harriman and Coco episode is so weird and sounds great, but unfortunately it makes up only half the runtime. The B-plot of Blue, while fun, is considerably weaker. Again, it's not bad or anything, and I still enjoy it, but I always prefer seeing Harriman and Coco since they have some pretty fun moments. During my rewatch, I was confused as to why the B-plot even existed, but then I remembered it was because of the ending. The donator turns out to be some crazy jackass who lied and said he was only being sarcastic, which is pretty funny, especially since everyone ends up going to jail. Anyway, fun episode, although if there was only the A-plot of Harriman and Coco, this could have been notably better.
What the hell is wrong with you? We're a family!
Okay. One of you is the true Blue. One of you is an imposter.
Mac brings Blue to school, everyone ends up loving him, they create their own version of him, however they all suck, so they bring their Blue to fosters. This is one of the most interesting plot lines in the series. Having everyone create the same imaginary friend is such a cool idea. There's so much they can do with the concept, however it's unfortunately used in an 11-minute episode. This still works well enough, it doesn't feel rushed or anything, but I feel like there's so much more they could have done with this idea. They did sort of reuse this with Goo later on, but that's just one character, plus she makes a bunch of different friends. Anyway, how are there over 100 Blues if there were only 20 kids in Mac's class, and why does every single kid not want him? Yes, they aren't as cool as the original Blue, but some of these don't seem that bad.
Trevor.
What is going on?
Blue tells Mac a story about Blue the Super Dude and how he destroyed something called the Magic Potato of Power. Now I'm sure a chunk of you are surprised to see this in the middle of the list and especially be lower than the second Super Dude episode. Well, that's because I don't love this one. Don't get me wrong, it's solid and all, and it's easily one of the most distinct and creative episodes. But I don't know, maybe it's because it's so distinct that it doesn't feel like a regular episode, which is why it's not one of my favorites, and yeah, that is kind of dumb. The jokes are good, although it's not one of the funniest episodes like a lot in the top 10 are. It's fun seeing how Blue envisions everyone, especially himself. His design is fucking awesome, has to be my favorite aspect of the whole episode. My one notable complaint though is that it's a bit lacking in rewatch value since its ending is so great and well done. This entire time, the story Blue told was actually about him and everyone else helping Frankie and fighting over Mac's DS, which is amazing. That being said, because it's so great, it doesn't have the same holy shit moment on a rewatch. It's sort of a one-time thing. For whatever reason, I don't have this problem with other episodes with shocking endings, it's literally just this one. Either way, I can 100% see why this is a fan favorite. I'm probably being way too harsh on it, but like I said, at worst, this is still pretty solid.
Hanging out in the alley. Figures.
You're kidding me.
Blue gets the hiccups and enters Foster's talent show so he can beat this asshole kid named Richie and his imaginary friend, Tony the Tiger. Richie and Tony are solid one-off antagonists. They're both giant pieces of stinky horse manure and are also just as skilled as Mac and Blue. Speaking of Blue, he's pretty good here. He doesn't want to help Mac beat Richie at first since he'd rather annoy everyone with his hiccups, but then he agrees to lose them and help Mac beat Richie and Tony, which is a pretty great moment. The hiccup battle at the end is awesome too, although it's never explained how Tony got hiccups at the exact same time he needed to perform. The same goes for Blue, although he did spend the whole talent show trying to get his hiccups back, so at least that makes some sense.
Okay, now stand on your head, and then brush your teeth, and go like this. La 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 la.
You'll get your rent when you fix this damn door!
The autumn of 1984 was cold and cruel.
Blue's obsessed with the
secret door, 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 secret door.
So he opens it and finds out that it's filled with a bunch of scribbles. These are imaginary friends that are made by babies, which is really cool world building, especially for an episode as early as this. Kind of weird how big aspects of the world like this, as well as others like food imaginary friends, were introduced in the very first season. Anyway, the first act is sort of slow, although that's kind of the point in order to show how obsessed Blue is with the door. Despite that though, there's surprisingly a lot going on here. Blue is curious about the secret door, he frees the scribbles, they then try to get rid of them, everyone loves them, they become lazy, and then the scribbles get adopted. This only happens because everyone finds a use for them, which is a very bizarre ending. They're supposed to be friends, but everyone treats them like slaves instead. None of the scribbles seem to mind, since I guess it's better than sitting in a closet all day long, but even so, still doesn't seem right. Anyway, this is one of the rare times where Blue is actually right and Frankie and Harriman are wrong. He's the first and only one who managed to realize that the scribbles shouldn't be locked away forever since they are useful. If it wasn't for him, all the scribbles would still be locked up and doing nothing. Just like the government.
Just got back from the other side of the house and I gotta ask, what is the deal with
This film takes place less than a year after the September 11th terrorist attacks. I bring this up because it radically altered the culture of the time.
I need pizza!
Terrence makes an imaginary friend, which he names Red, and wants him to smash Blue. This is another episode that's 11 minutes, and while fun, still feels like it could have been expanded into a regular 22-minute one. Just like Blues Brothers, it works as is, it's memorable and fun, but probably would have benefited if it was longer. Anyway, Terrence is so stupid that he makes a friend that can't even do the one thing he wanted. Then again, some friends are made to help their creators become better people, and Terrence is just too dumb and stubborn to change his douchebag ways. For whatever reason, we never see Red again after this, which is very disappointing. He's the imaginary friend of Mac's older brother and feels like he should be at the very least a recurring side character like Cheese. There's definitely a few things you could have done with him, even if he never ended up playing a big role again.
Hello, girly horsies. Look at you with your pretty rainbow mane and fluffy clouds on your butt.
Gabby Gums is my bread and butter, and I'm not gonna let you goody two-horseshoes take that away from me.
The first and best imaginary friend called Uncle Pockets returns to Foster's, however Blue thinks that he's actually an evil psychopath. Never noticed until now, but this is only a few episodes after Beat with a Stick, which is kind of weird since they both have somewhat similar plots. Both revolve around Blue thinking there's a psycho killer that wants to kill someone at Foster's. There's clearly differences though. That one was much more horror-like, where this is a lot more comedic.
Madam Foster's too old! We need to have her rubbed out!
I can't believe you would do this! I do declare you!
This is also a mystery as well. Not nearly as great as something like The Big Picture, but still pretty good even on multiple rewatches.
It's hot in Topeka.
Blue and later on Mac are all alone at Foster's for the whole day, which means they can do whatever they want. The pacing is sort of slow during the second act as well as the first couple minutes, but thankfully it's nothing too bad. Some of the most memorable scenes and jokes are in here, like Hot in Topeka and Blue drawing all over his face. Anyway, the ending is great. Won't ruin the trip for everyone. Meanwhile, Mac and Blue pretty much wasted the day not doing all that much.
damn milk!
Blue is sick and can't go to Mac's birthday party, but he still wants to anyway, so he tries to get downstairs and go. Now I know most of you are going to think I'm crazy for putting this above the first Blue the Super Dude, which yeah, I'll admit is a spicy hot take. The first episode was fun and extremely creative, however I ended up enjoying this one a bit more. First off, seeing Blue experience things as they happen instead of telling it as a story works better since you get to see his and everyone else's reactions to everything. There's a certain charm of hearing Blue tell a full story to Mac, especially since it's kind of obvious what really happened to him during the day. But again, seeing Blue and everyone's reactions to him is what really makes this more entertaining. For example, there's this one part where he meets Walt in the hallway and envisions him as this fiery monster. He starts running in between his legs, can't get away, but then bites him.
Was that the bite of 87?
This would work in the first episode, but here it's even better since we see what's really going on between Blue and Wilt outside of the hallucination. That's why I'm so impressed with this. They took an already great idea, reused it, but did something new and honestly made a better episode. Again, I'm probably in the minority here. I get the appeal of the first episode, but you have to admit that this isn't just the exact same kind of episode. It's another Blue the Super Dude, but it's not just Blue telling another story to Mac again.
Meow?
Blue becomes jealous over Madam Foster getting all the attention after saving a friend, so he opens up his own foster home for imaginary friends. This is another episode where Blue is really good. He's sort of a dick, but he still has good intentions. He first lets everyone know that a friend is in trouble, although he doesn't get thanked for it since everyone was too busy gooning over Madam Foster. Definitely makes sense why he'd be so annoyed, but at the same time, he's still being selfish for wanting the recognition this much. Like I said before though, this is a prime example of how to write Blue well. Make him selfish yet still funny and likable, but also make sure he doesn't annoy the characters that much. Anyway, Blue ends up getting attached to a cat, gives it away, but then misses it so much that he breaks into the family's home to get it back. He also talks to a shark head and puppet, so yeah, this episode is #weird. Ed, Wilt, and Coco think Blue is a ghost since he's sick. Meanwhile, Frankie is locked outside and is being stalked by Andy Dick. The A plot of Blue unintentionally scaring everyone is great, but the Frankie plotline is notably weaker. That being said, Frankie does smash the bus through the front door, so that's pretty epic. Anyway, this has to be one of the best looking episodes, which is surprising considering this is from season 1. The color palette is great. Everything is so dark and grim, really helps set the tone the episode was going for. Don't think there's a single scene that's well lit and bright except for maybe when Mac and Blue were in front of the fire, but that's basically it.
Who are you gonna call? They've been out of business for years.
Cause it's my movie, my superhero movie.
Hello there, Mac. My name is Eduardo.
Blue makes fart noises over Mac's school project and is then told to make a full feature-length movie. This also leads to Ed believing that he has a fart problem, which makes him write a letter to Craig McCracken? Yeah, this is hands down one of the best jokes in the show. It's fucking hysterical.
This must be the future. I'm getting too old for this junk.
Anyway, there's not too much to say here. The movie Blue made is fun. There's a bunch of references everywhere, although it sucks that we never got to see how it ends.
What are you talking about? Audiences don't care about endings. As long as everything else is awesome, you don't need an end.
It's time to
Coco lays baseball cards of everyone at Foster's, and Blue wants to collect them all without her help because he's a jealous asshole. He's pretty annoying during the first act, but after that it's entertaining seeing him collect every card by himself, which just shows how stubborn he is. This is also the episode that has the infamous whining scene, and it's still pretty epic. Anyway, I might like this one a bit more than some others, mainly because I love collecting things. I have all these DVDs, games, amiibos, I have so much shit. Even 2 wives. Blue realizes that he was a jerk to Coco and gives a genuinely good apology. He even burns all the cards he collected, which is kind of a waste, but I get why he did it. Coco forgives him and gives him a bobblehead of himself, but then Blue finds out that just like the cards, he's the most common one, which is kind of frustrating. Like other episodes, they want to end on a joke, but this is another case where it ends up hurting the narrative. Blue went out of his comfort zone and gave a solid apology to Coco, and while he was forgiven, it ends up not changing much since Coco still sees him the same. This doesn't ruin the episode or even make it that much worse, but it's still an annoyance either way.
I'd live in a penthouse, in a room with a view.
There's gotta be a way to get him out of that totally awesome room.
Coco,
I think if we did that, we'd go to jail.
Elon Musk gets adopted, meaning that his room is empty, so now Blue, Ed, Wilt, and Coco fight over who gets it. This is another great idea. Not everyone has their own room, and most of them have shared one for years, and maybe even more than a decade. Might just be that Wilt is my favorite character, but he clearly deserves the room the most. He's been at Foster's the longest, he's been sleeping on the floor for over a year now, he's super nice, plus the room is tall and has basketball wallpaper. You could argue that Coco is a girl and needs it because of privacy and all, which I get, but again, Wilt still deserves it more. Ed and Blue have dumb reasons too, but this is part of the charm of the episode. It's another instance where even though the characters' reasonings are dumb, it's still important since it helps distinguish them from each other.
I show you muscles!
Anyway, Ed ends up getting the room, which is really underwhelming, but it doesn't matter since everyone ends up sleeping together since they're all lonely. It's a fine ending, I get what they were going for, although it would have been neat to see Ed or someone else get their own room for the rest of the series. Besides, would this really change all that much? How often are all these characters in their room at the same time? Anyway, Harriman was right in letting Mac choose who should get the room, although he clearly didn't explain to him, which is why he picked this fat fuck. Mac should have had everyone give a reason for why they wanted the room, and whoever had the best should have gotten it.
Outside! Good evening, ladies and germs, good evening. I just flew in from Chicago, and boy, are my arms flying!
Foster's is having a bunch of donors come for a party, so Frankie tells the gang that they either have to stay inside or go outside for the day. Despite this being the second to last episode, it actually feels much more like something from season 1 or 2. The premise is super basic, it has a much more laid-back tone, and Blue isn't a dick, in fact he's great. He tries his best to do everything Frankie says without getting in trouble, but he, as well as everyone else, fails because they're all stupid. For example, they start a fire in their room, so they first try to put it out with a fire extinguisher, but they don't want to break the glass since that'll make noise, and Frankie told them they can't be too loud. So then they try to get water to put it out, but think the pipes are making too much noise, so they climb on top of each other to try and turn the fire alarm off. Everyone is sort of dumbed down here, but there's so many funny moments that I don't mind. The only minor annoyance is the ending, because just like Coco Cards, it ends with Blue not in a great situation. Frankie tells him that he's busted, even though he spent the whole episode following every rule she made and even made all the donors give millions of dollars. So what? Is Frankie teasing Blue or is he actually in trouble? Gonna say she's irritated at him, but because she got so much money, she doesn't care that he, as well as everyone else, were being stupid throughout the day.
What do you mean they blew up the Death Star?
You got any friends?
Frankie and everyone go to the mall to get Madame Foster a birthday present, but shit hits the fan and everything that can go wrong goes wrong. This one's a classic. It's one of the first episodes, everyone likes it, there's a bunch of memorable moments, and both Blue and Frankie's plot lines are solid. Besides the last act of House of Blues, this is the first episode that takes place outside of Foster's, so that's something. Anyway, not much to say. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but there's just a decent chunk of episodes that I'd rather watch instead.
I'll be really quick, I swear. You won't even know I'm there.
Blue? Fine.
Really?
Yes, just hurry, okay?
Got it.
Mac brings two imaginary friends to Foster's, however they quickly take over and sell everyone into slavery. This is sort of like a reimagining of Bendy where a new friend comes to Foster's, but it turns out he tricks everyone since he's evil. This is however on a much bigger scale since, like I said, this little fucker takes over the whole house and sells off everyone. He even says he wants to turn Foster's into a casino, which is actually spicy goodness.
Like a boss.
Anyway, why did the two of them stay in the closet at school the entire time? The green guy is clearly strong enough to break the door down, so they could have escaped whenever they wanted to. They also could have dug a tunnel underground like Blue did, which he's somehow strong enough to do. Blue also punches the front door of Foster's down too, which, okay, I guess he's super strong but just doesn't know it. The Halloween special where Blue thinks he killed Harriman, turned him into a zombie, and then infected everyone else at Foster's and turned all of them into zombies too. Holy shit, this episode is kind of nuts. It's surprising seeing what they were able to get away with here. Blue outright says Harriman is dead and later on tells Ed that he killed him. They don't try to avoid saying these things like, oh, I destroyed Harriman or Harriman isn't alive anymore. No, Harriman is dead.
You're fucking dead.
Obviously this is all one big prank on Blue, but to him this is is all real, and by seeing most of the episode through his perspective, you feel almost as scared as him. Reminds me a lot of Beat with a Shtick. Not as uncomfortable, but clearly the better episode overall. We find out that Mac has to be tied down on Halloween due to his sugar addiction, which is cool, although he ends up not doing anything until the last couple minutes. Blue gives him candy, he attacks everyone at Foster's, and runs off stealing candy. Once this happens, the episode just ends abruptly, which sucks since I wanted to see more of Mac go on his sugar rampage. Then again, we already saw him like this before, plus we see the aftermath of it in the credits, so at least it's something.
I'm not your boyfriend.
Mac and Blue meet a girl called Goo who has trouble controlling her imagination and creates an infinite number of imaginary friends. Goo is great, she's the super energetic and weird character, plus she's also another human for everyone to hang out with. It's really cool seeing someone unable to control their imagination, although this kind of breaks the whole show. If someone like Goo thinks of literally anything, like a giant monster the size of Texas, wouldn't that destroy the whole country within minutes? This is something the writers didn't think of or care about, but this is probably making me take the show way too seriously. Anyway, the only nitpick is that Harriman and Frankie are sort of dicks to Mac. They ignore and don't believe him when he says that he doesn't want Goo at Foster's since they think he has a crush on her. He then freaks the fuck out over this, which, okay, you don't have to like her, but you're way more against this than you should be. What's the reason, Mac? Are you a racist?
Yes! Yes! Horton hears domestic violence in the next apartment and doesn't call 911.
The gang goes to the arcade and buys a squeaking pink elephant. This has to be one of the best Blue has ever been. There's a perfect balance of him being a dick, stupid, funny, but also caring. He wants everyone to buy him glow-in-the-dark vampire teeth, but they all agree on getting the pink elephant instead. He's then miserable all day since he has to wait for his turn to play with it, so you start to feel sort of sympathetic for him. Then he breaks it and is forced to get everyone a new elephant, which he puts the effort into doing. However, being the selfish dumbass that he is, he buys the vampire teeth instead. This then makes him go through all that pain and suffering again to gather enough tickets to buy another elephant. This is great. Blue is a dislikable, stupid jerk at times, but when the time comes, he's willing to go this far to help his friends out.
What should we name him? How about Donald Trump?
Anyway, the only thing that's sort of dumb is that Blue has 2 hours to get Eduardo a new elephant. Even though he leaves in the morning, it's sundown by the time Blue gets back, meaning he was gone for probably what, like around 8 hours? Also, how did Mac have enough money to buy all those tokens for Blue to use? Wouldn't it have just made more sense for Blue to go and buy Ed another elephant at a store, which is what Mac ends up doing? I know the point was for Blue to put the effort in himself, but you probably wasted hundreds of dollars on all those tickets.
I always come back.
Blue decides to hang out with a kid named Barry while Mac is at school. However, it turns out that Barry is actually Barry? While Barry coming back is awesome, it sucks that we only get to see her during the last couple minutes. This is a great reveal, don't get me wrong. It's been 5 seasons since we last saw her, so this was probably shocking to a lot of fans. But as a sequel to Barry Scary, it's disappointing that she's barely in it, mainly because she's my favorite one-off character, so more of her would have been epic. That being said, she does kidnap a family, skins a kid alive, and holy shit, is about to kill Mac on the choo-choo train. Anyway, Mac and Blue's relationship is portrayed very weirdly here. It's almost as if they're a married couple. Blue acts like he cheated on him, and Mac gets drunk off of sugar after he finds out about it. It's still a really cool idea seeing Blue decide to hang out with another kid though. Him interacting with other humans and kids is something I wish we got to see more of.
What the dog doing?
Ed brings a dog into the house, which puts Harriman on suicide watch since he's afraid of dogs. Not only is this a great Ed episode, in fact it's by far the best, but it's also a solid Harriman one too. What's so great about Harriman episodes is that it shows a different side to him that we don't normally see, such as him constantly being terrified for a full episode. He's usually this calm and organized figure that always seems to know what he's doing, but here he's completely different.
See? Are you kidding?
Anyway, Blue is pretty weak here. He doesn't really do anything. He's sort of annoying and not in a funny way. Want to know what is funny though? Ed telling everyone that he took a shit on the floor.
Well, Ed, if a dog didn't do it, who did?
Disgusting! The ending is kind of dumb too. It turns out that all the dogs were imaginary, which is actually not a bad twist. However, why was it that only right when they were about to leave did they reveal this? Why weren't they using their powers earlier on? Did they not have them yet? The episode doesn't answer this, and because of that, this ending feels like an ass pull, but either way, we did indeed find out what the dogs were doing.
What the dog doing?
I'm going to jail!
Ooh,
you are not going to draw a mustache on that, are you?
Me? Me? Pfft, are you kidding? Me? Of course not.
Oh, good. You had me quite worried.
I thought I'd go with the clown theme this time, just to mix things up a bit.
Harriman is addicted to carrots and goes around the house looking for them. Meanwhile, Blue tries to get in trouble so he doesn't have to eat it. Just like the last episode, Harriman is great here since we see a more selfish and flawed side to him. He's been in the wrong before, but that's more so because some of his rules and ideals are really stupid. Waiting until everyone is present to eat dinner isn't a bad mindset since it is nice being able to eat with your friends and family. However, due to his stubbornness and stupidity, he would have let everyone starve just because 2 people didn't show up, which is really stupid. Again, deep down he did have good intentions, but here he's purely selfish. He abuses his power by punishing everyone for basically doing nothing just so he can satisfy his addiction, and at the end he even goes to jail.
I'm going to jail!
Blue is also pretty good here. He spends a whole episode trying to get punished but always fails, which results in him eating it. You could argue that Blue didn't deserve this since everyone else got punished for no reason and was able to avoid eating it, but they all still went to bed without eating any dinner, plus Blue messed up the entire house all day long, so I think he deserves this to a certain extent. Again, he's not entirely in the wrong here or even a dick, but he still tried doing things like attempting to kill Harriman, which is pretty crazy. Anyway, it is kind of repetitive. Harriman punishes people, Blue tries to get in trouble, Frankie cooks it, but then part of the ceiling falls into it and ruins it. This is a fine criticism, but the episode is so fun that I don't care. There's so many great jokes here.
If you want to see your precious carrots again, meet me on the roof at 8 p.m. or I'm turning you in.
Security system takes control of Squidward's house and begins attacking the city.
Sting, 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 sting. Ow,
Harriman installs a security system into the house, but is a dumbass and made the password at random. Now everyone is locked outside the house, and the only one who knows the code is Cheese. First act is a bit slow. The first 4 minutes are spent entirely on showing Cheese annoying everyone. Thankfully, this isn't like Cheese A Go-Go where he only has one repeated line and it's super annoying. The screaming can get old, especially since he does it multiple times, but much more than not, Cheese is really funny here.
I have ringworm!
Shouldn't Frankie have a key to the house? I don't think the security system would prevent keys from working. Also, aren't there other entrances like the cellar or back door or even the roof? Why didn't they try going through there? Anyway, this was always one of my favorites as a kid, and I'm happy to say that it's still just as great as I remember it being.
Nice car.
Madam Foster and the gang bowl against a bunch of old liberals. Yep, it's the bowling episode. Kind of hard to make these episodes not fun. Basically, just have your characters bowl and have fun. Put in some decent stakes and the episode will at the very least be good. This is another episode that's super simple, although again, the jokes are so strong that it doesn't matter. Mac is basically useless for once. He can't bowl at all, which is why Madam Foster replaces him with Blue since he's better than him. However, Mac accidentally wins them the game, although it turns out they were just competing for 5th place the entire time, which is a nice twist.
What a twist!
I am officially running for President of the United States.
I saw you had a job opening for a rabbit.
Sure, you betcha. How fast you run?
Well, not too fast.
You a fast healer?
Foster's is having another election for House President. However, instead of Harriman winning by default, both Frankie and Blue run against him. After 3 seasons, we finally get to see Frankie tell Harriman to shove his rules up his furry rabbit asshole. Harriman is usually dislikable and frustrating, but this is one of the rare times where he's proven to be wrong. Frankie wins against him, which is so satisfying. However, she quickly gives him his job back only because he makes less money than her. That is very underwhelming and also feels a bit rushed, but there's not too much else they could have done here. Obviously, Frankie had to give Harriman his job back, but how were they going to do that with only a few minutes left? Frankie's used to working non-stop, so she wouldn't get tired from all the work Harriman has to do. Everyone seems to respect her and likes her new rules, so they wouldn't get mad at her for doing a poor job.
5 is not good enough. I say 6 or 7 or even
Funny one.
Anyway, despite not liking Harriman in most episodes, he somehow works super well in ones where he's the main focus and isn't just an annoyance or threat. This is also one of the rare times where Harriman teams up with Blue since he's so desperate and scared of losing. He even says that if Blue helps him win, he won't punish him for an entire year, which is pretty crazy. Once he does lose, he's miserable, and although he does deserve this, you do start to feel the tiniest bit bad for him. This has been his job for decades, and now that he lost it, he feels like he doesn't have a purpose anymore. That's why he goes around looking for a new job, which, while interesting, also kind of doesn't make sense either. His purpose has always been to be there for Madame Foster since she's his creator. If he's not the house president anymore, then at least he could stay and do something else like Frankie's old job, which he refuses since he feels like he's unwanted.
But did you know that these same people were raised by a pack of wild pigs?
What?
Dirty, smelly pigs?
Big chungus. I'm looking for that special someone who's rich and good looking and in really great shape.
Mac and Blue record a funny video of the Big Chungus, upload it to YouTube, and then it becomes super popular. Like I just got done saying, Harriman can be great in some episodes, and this is one of them. This was the first episode where we got to see a new side to him, which is him being terrified of everyone. This doesn't happen until the end, and most of the episode focuses on jokes surrounding him, but it's still a nice addition. The only problem is that Harriman doesn't really do anything to deserve this. Yes, he's kind of a dick in the beginning, but besides that, he doesn't do anything wrong. He's only scared for like a minute though, so it's not like half the episode is spent with him suffering. Also, I'm kind of fine with this since he was a dick in episodes like Dinner is Swerved and to a lesser extent Star Wars, so seeing him finally feel like shit for once was refreshing. Anyway, this is one of the extremely rare times where Frankie and Blue get along and enjoy something together. It's great to see them both get amusement from watching Harriman embarrass himself like this. Shows that although they're vastly different characters, they can still find common ground and have fun like this.
House. Roadhouse. That too.
Do not come. Do not come.
The big 3-part series premiere where Mac brings Blue to Foster's for the very first time. Even after 6 seasons plus a movie, the first episode still nearly made it into the top 10. Basically being a movie and over an hour long does help, so with the extended runtime, they're able to do a lot here. We get introduced to all the main characters, and by the end, we already have a solid understanding of who most of them are. Mac's just a regular kid, Wilt's super tall and nice, Coco is Coco, and Ed is super strong, but also a big pussy. There's also Blue, who's Mac's imaginary friend, and he's basically a more flawed, fun, and a bit more chaotic version of Mac. This is probably the most good-hearted Blue has ever been in the series, since he really doesn't do anything wrong here. He smashes a vase over Terrence's head and over-exaggerates to Harriman about Mac's life at home, but that's literally the worst he does here. Not even saying these are bad things or anything, since both of them were Blue trying to help Mac. Even though these weren't Blue's best options, it makes sense why he acted like this, and that's because he picked up some of these things from Terrence. Mac's mom is barely home, so Terrence is the older figure who Blue learns from. He still understands that Terrence is a jerk and doesn't want to grow up like him, but there's still small aspects that he picked up from him. For example, when Blue thinks Ed is attacking Mac, he shouts, "I just want to punch you," which is the exact same line Terrence used earlier on. This is a subtle detail that I never noticed as a kid, but it's something that ends up being super important to Blue's character. Throughout the series, he becomes much more flawed as well as dislikable, and that might actually be due to him growing up like Terrence. That's a cool theory, however it's also weird that Blue didn't stay the same or become nicer after hanging out with everyone at Foster's. He spends so much time with Wilt, Coco, and Ed, so wouldn't he start to look up to them and try acting like them too? Definitely something to analyze and think about, but at the same time, Blue sort of had to change, otherwise the series wouldn't be as entertaining. For this episode, Blue needed to be sympathetic since he'll be splitting apart from his best friend Mac and we'll be seeing him a lot less often. This works here, but it sounds difficult to write that many plot lines with Blue being so similar to Mac in terms of morality. Yes, there are episodes like Very Scary and Dinner is Swerved that work with Blue acting like this, but they still needed to contrast him from Mac and make him more flawed, which I think was a good decision. However, they did go too far with it at times.
Yes. 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 Yes.
The only nitpick is that some scenes feel a bit stretched out, such as where Blue's being chased by that one bitch. There's also the fact that Harriman lets Duchess stay at Foster's even though she almost murdered multiple friends and even a human child. He says it's the best punishment he can think of since she doesn't want to leave, but that's also pretty stupid. So you can kill anyone at Foster's, but in the literal next episode you think about throwing someone out just because they complain about all the rules in the house? Jesus Trump, John Cena, Wayne Gacy. Harriman is one big stupid asshole.
Wow, what an asshole.
Simple ones, stealthy ones, two-in-ones, unimaginative ones. Some kids aren't that creative, so they just copy what they see on TV.
Anyway, there's really nothing wrong with House of Blues. It's a great and impressive start to the series. Although there's 10 episodes, I'd still say you're better.
Look at this photograph! Got him! Got him!
Mac and Blue try to figure out what happened in one of the annual house photos at Foster's. Meanwhile, everyone else prepares for this year's house photo. This is one of the most memorable episodes, and I'm glad that all these years later, it's still one of my favorites. Not only is the main plot great, but there's other side plots that are pretty fun too. Coco is depressed since she thinks she's fat, Will tries to find a good way to fit in the photo, and Duchess gives Ed a makeover.
Let's see if we can remove some of that old dead skin.
She's barely used in the series, but this is easily one of her best appearances. She isn't screaming non-stop, and she isn't annoying like in the beginning of Duchess of Wales. She's just a selfish jerk that only helps Ed because she doesn't want to stand next to someone she thinks is ugly. Anyway, the main plotline is where the episode is unsurprisingly at its strongest. Despite seeing this over 10 times, it's still very exciting seeing Mac and Blue figure out what happened in the photo. That being said, it really doesn't make sense how the picture was able to turn out the way it did. Shouldn't the stairs be opened up, and more importantly, shouldn't Frankie and Madame Foster be looking behind themselves to see what happened? That would obviously ruin the mystery and all, but still, it makes the ending sort of underwhelming and a bit unsatisfying since you can't predict this at all. Anyway, it's also kind of crazy that every single friend can fit on the stairs, but then again, they all sit at the dinner table, so I guess it does make sense.
Pinkamena Diane Pie was the first true celebutante of the pony world.
Frankie and Madame Foster are gone, so Blue throws a wild house party. This is where we find out that Mac can't have sugar since he's an addict and goes super insane. Seeing a new side to Mac is really cool, and I like how this isn't a one-time thing since multiple other episodes reference this later on. Anyway, most of it is just the cast hanging out at the party and having fun. There's not that much going on besides Mac being on crack and Duchess trying to call Madame Foster. But if you couldn't tell by now, simple episodes like this aren't an issue as long as they're fun, which this one definitely is. This also has to be one of the best looking episodes. The color palette is great, there's a bunch of blues, purple, and reds, it's colorful, and colors are certainly good. Blue signs a contract and becomes an actor. But it turns out that he actually signs adoption forms, meaning he's now adopted and can't go back to Foster's. This is easily one of the best Blue has ever been. That's mainly due to the episode making me hate Blue immediately, but then shortly after I started feeling sympathetic for him. Blue's a scumbag for going on TV and lying to everyone. There's no defending him here, but sleeping in a dog cage and never being able to see Mac or any of his friends again is way too cruel. Anyway, one complaint I've seen is that Mac is the one who believes that Blue doesn't care for him, which I don't really get. This makes sense since Mac has known Blue the longest, so because of that, he's the most upset that he probably won't see him for a long time. He also knows Blue the most and understands that this is potentially something he would do since he is kind of a big selfish poopy head. So yeah, this doesn't feel forced at all, and I like how everyone else believes that he's just too busy to see them.
Crazy boss! Crazy boss! Crazy boss!
No, it would sound more like this.
Blue steals the Foster's bus from Frankie without her knowing, picks up Mac, gets lost, and asks Will to prevent Frankie from finding out. The best aspect has to be how both plotlines are equally as entertaining, and it's not just that they're good, they're both
up your ass.
Big mouse.
Mac and Blue driving around everywhere is so much fun. Blue begins working for a pizza place, he gets pulled over by a cop, and then he picks up a bunch of homeless people. Wilt breaks Ed's piggy bank, gets Coco to pretend to be sick, and even pushes Harriman down the stairs. This is easily in the top 5 funniest episodes. There's so many jokes and so many of them are great.
Maybe you should just let me drive.
There's some issues, such as half the episode being sort of a Wilt torture corn, although done in a good and more importantly funny way. Blue should have crashed the bus immediately, but then again if he did, then the episode would be notably different. Blue also doesn't get punished for stealing the bus since it ends so abruptly, plus he even takes it again in the after credits. The reason why this isn't that frustrating is because you don't see Frankie suffer or take the blame for Blue causing all these problems. Again, it ends so quickly that you don't get enough time to realize just how much trouble Blue caused for her. Anyway, none of these nitpicks ruin or even bring down the episode since it's so goddamn fun.
You're not my dad! Coco! Coco!
Mac believes he created Cheese, meaning that Blue is his big brother. Cheese is amazing here, and this is definitely his best appearance. He's the perfect balance of stupid but not annoying, funny, and also cringy too. There's so many quotable lines and barely any of the jokes are repeated too. The idea of Mac accidentally creating an imaginary friend in his sleep is also great and interesting. This is still sort of early on for the series, so Mac making Cheese by mistake is actually realistic, which makes the twist pretty shocking at the end. Back when this first aired, people might have thought Cheese was going to be a new mainstay character, but it's good that didn't happen, since obviously too much cheese is a bad thing. Anyway, we also get this genuine solid moment where Blue starts to realize that he cares for Cheese and sees him as his actual brother. He does say he's thankful that he wasn't related to him afterwards, but we all know he's just a big fat tsundere.
Now you're a horsey! Give me up! Look at the funny face!
It's Adopt-A-Thought Saturday again, but everyone loses the adoption forms at Old Man River's house, so now no one can get adopted. This might be higher than some of you were expecting, but it's basically here for the same reason Busted 2 of Us is, which is that it's a blast from start to finish. Yet again, both plot lines are great. Blue tries to piss off Old Man River's grandson and get the forms back, meanwhile Ed tries to stall for time while he waits for Blue. There is so much that happens throughout it, and it's surprising seeing how much they managed to cram into a regular 22-minute episode. Literally every mainline and side character has something to do, except for Coco, which kind of brings me to a big flaw with the episode. Why couldn't Coco lay more adoption forms, or better yet, couldn't Harriman print more himself? They could have at least mentioned something like the printer is broken or Coco doesn't feel like laying the forms, but no, we get nothing.
I'm the trash man.
Anyway, it's great seeing another Adopt-A-Thought Saturday since the first one was very disappointing. The idea was interesting and I'm glad they reused it, especially since this ended up being one of my favorites. Foster's has a reunion every 5 years where everyone's creators come and see their imaginary friends for one weekend. However, Wilt's creator has never shown up before, so he decides to leave Foster's and everyone goes searching for him. Seeing everyone and their creators is great, especially since we see Ed with his for a decent amount of it. There's also these nerds who are obsessed with Coco that are fun, and I kind of like that we never find out who created Coco. Not everything needs an answer, but there's some big ones like finally finding out how Wilt broke his arm and eye. His creator was going to die by getting sat on by this fat ass basketball friend, which is both sad but also funny at the same time. Like, out of all the ways for a kid to die, it's by getting his face pulverized by this orange fox booty butt cheeks. Anyway, the middle of the episode, while still great, does have some issues. The Wilt plot is amazing. He goes around everywhere helping people, which is really satisfying and is another showcase of just how nice of a guy he is. However, the B plot of everyone following him isn't as fun, although that's mainly because I'm so invested in Wilt that I want to see more of him. This half of the episode is also pretty repetitive. Wilt goes somewhere, helps people out, everyone else arrives but misses him and goes to another location. Not a big problem or anything, but definitely a nitpick that slightly bothers me.
Big mentology!
Hey, everybody!
Anyway, even though parts of it aren't amazing, there's others that certainly make up for it. We find out that imaginary friends aren't created just to make their creators less lonely, but they exist to help them with other problems too. For example, there's Ed, who can be scary and strong and is able to protect his creator. However, he's also a baby too, and the reason for that was to make his creator learn to defend and stick up for herself and others. There's also the last couple minutes, which are perfect. Wilt finally reunites with his creator Jordan Michael and learns that he helped him grow up to become a better person. Wilt then tells him that he doesn't want to go back with him since he wants to stay at Foster's and find a kid that truly needs him. That's bittersweet, but it makes sense since Jordan doesn't need Wilt anymore. But Wilt agrees to hang out with him whenever Jordan wants, so at the end of the day, Wilt gets to see his creator again and gets his happy ending that he deserves. The movie where Frankie opens a chest and lives in a world that's ruled by one imaginary friend. Meanwhile, the gang thinks Frankie has been kidnapped, so they go in to rescue her. Just like Good Will Hunting, this is widely regarded to be one of the best episodes, which is kind of unfair since both aren't regular 22-minute episodes. But then again, who said anything about life being fair?
I like the fair.
Anyway, yes, this is without a doubt one of the best things to come from the series. Not only is it a big fun adventure for the gang, but more importantly, it's a proper ending to Frankie and Harriman's character arcs. Frankie finally gets the recognition she deserves after being treated like shit for so long. Harriman apologizes for mistreating her and makes a new house rule, making everyone do some of Frankie's chores. This is such an amazing ending, and I'd argue is the true finale of the series. Goodbye to Blue is extremely disappointing and underwhelming, and I really don't consider it to be the finale. This, however, while not not a perfect finale, it certainly leagues better than Goodbye to Blue. We might not get closure on Mac growing up or Wilt Ed or Coco getting adopted, but a conclusion to Harriman and Frankie is pretty satisfying, so I can't complain that much. Again, like I said before, if you're somehow this far in, want to rewatch the series but still haven't, then please do yourself a favor and save this for last. Treat Goodbye to Blue as a season 6 finale and view this as the actual series finale.
Look out, Beers! Here I
come!
For whatever reason, this is in 4:3, despite coming out in 2008 when season 5 and 6 were already in widescreen. Speaking of those seasons, this might have been the reason why they were so hit and miss, since a decent amount of time was spent working on this. This is kind of bittersweet since we got a chunk of not good episodes, but at the same time we did get this, which again, is amazing.
Please, Frankie's way too fat to fit in there.
There's this one scene where everyone is trying to convince Frankie to come back and she refuses since she believes they only miss her for the good things she did for them. It's very well done and doesn't feel forced at all since Frankie is irritated at Foster's and they all miss her and the things she's done for them.
Good heavens, what's happening?
You picked him up! That's what's happening!
I swear, when I first heard this as a kid, Blue said pissed off, but he actually says peeved off, even though it sounds more like picked off. Then again, I'm probably mistaking this with the first season of Regular Show, where they censored pissed and other things shortly after the original airings. Anyway, the world is so creative here. There's so much fun and memorable set pieces like the Simon Says Bridge, the Mario Underground section, and the Ball Pit River. World is also a fun character, and yes, he's not named in the movie at all, but that's apparently what everyone refers to him as. He's a good antagonist, he's threatening, and all his actions make sense since all he wanted was a friend.
Harriman is a big bad.
Anyway, there's nothing really wrong with this, although there's just 2 episodes that are so hilarious that I had to rank them higher.
I got a boner!
Mac, Blue, some random ass pizza guy, and an imaginary prince fall in love with Frankie. The plot is super simple and some scenes are pretty long, but just like a lot of other episodes ranked this high, it's carried by its comedy.
I hate you. Oh, right.
I hate you.
Literally every joke lands. The premise is so stupid and over the top, and the last act is perfection. Mac, Blue, and the pizza guy dress up as Orlando Blue, along with the prince who's dressed as a woman, and they sabotage Frankie's dinner date. The dialogue is great. It's fucking hysterical. I can't stress enough how entertaining this last act is. Anyway, some people find this episode kind of creepy now because it's about Mac falling for Frankie, who's obviously much older than him, which I think is pretty dumb. Mac's the one who has a crush on Frankie, not the other way around. He's still a kid and it's normal for them to have temporary crushes like this, so I don't see the problem. Anyway, this might not be as important as something like Good Will Hunting or Destination Imagination, but it's hilarious. However, there's just one more episode that's literally a nipple hair better than this, which is... My name is... There's a new friend that comes to Foster's named Barry, who has a crush on Blue and wants to kill anyone that tries to get in between them. This is definitely going to be one of my hottest takes, but this has and still is my favorite episode of Foster's. Yes, I understand that other episodes are probably more well written, have characters going through interesting arcs, etc., but I really can't help it. Everything about this works for me, and one of those aspects is of course its comedy. Barry is this yandere who immediately falls in love with Blue for no reason other than her being insane. And of course, being the moron that he is, Blue doesn't realize she's in love with him and also can't seem to remember her name.
Whoa! Who said anything about love, Heather?
Despite this, Barry still loves Blue for some reason and wants to kill anyone that gets in her way. She's so over the top, has some amazing facial expressions, and is insane, which is why she's easily my favorite 1 or I guess 2 off character. More importantly, what kind of person created Barry? Were they insane or were they actually normal and Barry was the one who's Coco for Cocoa Puffs? Wouldn't be surprised if Barry was like World from Destination Imagination and was forced out of her creator's house. Then again, she might have killed them since she's insane, and actually now that I think about it, that's probably what happened. Barry killed her creator, she killed her creator's family, and now she's come to Foster's to kill everyone else except for Blue. Anyway, like I said, I'm sure for a lot of you this is like a 7 or 8 out of 10 episode, but for me it's my personal favorite, which is why it's number 1.
Don't let your kids watch it.
Speak nuts like a mouse.
Well, that's all the episodes ranked, but if you've seen my other rankings, you'd know that this isn't where the video ends. That's because it's time to rank all 6 seasons and find out which is the best and which is the not so best, starting with the worst, which is
number 6. Man urinates on fellow passenger.
Before my rewatch, I went into it expecting to really like the first 5 seasons, but also thought season 6 was going to be just alright. However, I didn't realize how piss poor season 5 was. I either forgot that half of these episodes even exist or barely remember them at all. Some are alright, but a decent amount, even the ones I remembered, were surprisingly really... Cheese-A-Go-Go has cheese repeating one line over 500 times, Say It Isn't So is slow and boring, Ticket to Rod is a painful mess, and The Little Piece is basically filler. Mediocre or even bad episodes are one thing, but some of these are just terrible, plus they take up about a third of the season. What makes this even worse is that the rest of the season isn't strong enough to make up for these shitty episodes. Sure, there's a return of Barry, as well as a Halloween special, both of which are great, but that's literally it. Blue the Super Dude, Schlockstar, and maybe one or two others I can see people enjoying more than me, but still not enough where they could carry the season. Really does feel like they were running out of ideas here. Obviously they still had good ideas, but again, nowhere near the same quality and consistency as most of the previous seasons. The only aspect where the season improves is its visuals, since the series is now in widescreen and HD, meaning it looks a lot nicer, cleaner, and sharper. Anyway, I don't know why the season was so much worse. I don't think there was a big change in writers or anything. Either way, it's kind of funny how both Powerpuff Girls and Fosters have a major drop in quality starting with season 5, as well as having a disappointing third season.
You can stop at 5 or 6 stores or just 1.
Yeah, so season 3 is just alright, not nearly as mixed and underwhelming as season 5, but still disappointing. Make 'em Up Pals and Foster's Goes to Europe are really the only 2 episodes keeping this from being just as good as the first 4 seasons. Besides these, the rest of the season is pretty solid, although there aren't that many amazing episodes. Setting a President and Crime After Crime are easily the 2 best, but the others are either really good, just good, or alright. The only major thing to come from this season is Goo, which is a good addition, although it sucks that she does basically nothing after season 4.
Face the wrath of number 4 Go!
Season 6 was a bit better than I expected, although that's mainly due to Destination Imagination taking up 3 episode spots. Excluding that, the rest of the season is still alright, but definitely closer to the quality of season 5 than 3. Surprisingly, there are some better ideas here compared to season 5. Coco travels around the world, a chunk of Fosters gets adopted, and Mac and Blue spend an entire afternoon racing home to Fosters. These ideas are fun, although some don't work and others are just bad to begin with, like Jackie Cohen's being paired with Mac for a full episode. That being said, this is basically season 5 but better. It's clearly worse than the next 3 seasons, it's a mixed bag, although the bad ones aren't that horrendous. Season 2 is pretty good. Some of the best episodes are in here, although there's some pretty bad ones too. Bye Bye Nerdy is dumb, Where There's a Will There's a Way sucks, and don't make me complain about this yellow fucker again. That being said, besides these couple episodes, most of season 2 is pretty damn good. One notable change from season 1 is the amount of locations, since there's definitely more this time around. There's a bowling alley, restaurant, arcade, and some others too. There's also the addition of God himself, aka Cheese.
Sometimes I dream about
2 niggas kissing.
Season 4 is also pretty good. There's 2 bad episodes, one which is offensively terrible, but besides those, there's a lot to enjoy here. Both Cheese and Goo return, which is nice since they're some of the best side characters. There's Good Will Hunting, which is an amazing 2-part special, as well as some other top tier episodes like Busted 2 of Us and Neighbor Pains. But yeah, not much else to say. It's basically another solid season of Fosters.
He was number 1!
This was very surprising, but season 1 ended up being the best season. Before my rewatch, I figured season 2 or 4 would be the best, but somehow season 1 managed to win. The main reason for that is probably due to it being very consistent. Phone Home is sort of forgettable, and Adopcalypse Now is definitely not good. That's it though, there's 2 misses, but they aren't terrible or even that bad. Every other episode is at worst just good. There's House of Blues, which is a great 3-part premiere, plus there's also Very Scary, which is my all-time favorite. This season is more slice of life compared to the others, since nearly every episode takes place inside of Foster's. There's also a surprising amount of world building for the first season, such as Scribbles being introduced, food friends, crazy imaginary friends made by teenagers, etc. Another reason why this might be the best is because of Blue, and how for the most part he's a pretty likable yet still flawed character. He doesn't do anything that bad, and usually he seems to have good intentions. Anyway, season 1 is good. It's the best season, but not by a whole lot.
I don't want to hear it. It's totally cool. I'll take the floor. 'Floor, no problem.
'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor, no problem. 'Floor,
This is awesome!
Alright, now that I finally finished ranking every episode and season, I can now answer the question I asked at the beginning of the video. What series is better, Powerpuff Girls or Foster's Home for Constipated Friends? Well, after doing the math by adding the scores of all 6 seasons from each show, I got my answer. The Powerpuff Girls came in with a score of 6.52 out of 10, meanwhile Foster's got, drumroll please, 6.94 out of 10, meaning Foster's is better, right?
No.
Well, technically speaking, that is true, but there's a big fat asterisk on that. Like I said, I added the scores of all 6 seasons of each show, which meant I also counted the last 2 seasons of the Powerpuff Girls. This might be considered unfair since Craig McCracken had basically no involvement with seasons 5 and 6. Since I was curious, I decided to remove the last 2 season scores and redid the math, and I obviously got a much different result. The Powerpuff Girls now came in with a 7.24, which is clearly higher than Foster's final score. So what does this mean in terms of answering which series is better? Well, I hate, and I mean I really hate to say this, but that all depends on you and how you judge a series. If you think it's only fair to judge what the original creator made and worked on since it's their creation, then that's fine. However, if you think it's only fair to judge something based on its entirety, then that's fair too. I see both points of view, and honestly I don't have a preference since I get the appeal of both. When I look at something that's usually short, such as a 1 or 2 season show, I'll obviously judge it based on its entirety. However, when I say something like I love SpongeBob, I'm strictly referring to the first 3 seasons as well as the movie. SpongeBob isn't the same series as it was 20 years ago. It's not just a 3 or 4 season series. It's now 15 seasons long, has gone through many different writers, and sadly had its original creator pass away 7 years ago. The same can be said for other long-running series like Fairly Odd Parents and Family Guy. When most people say they're fans of these shows, they're only referring back to when they were good. Now, when exactly these shows were still good and before they turned to shit depends on who you ask. There's fans of Family Guy that only enjoy the first 3 seasons, 4, 6, 8, and probably the entire series. Somehow. Anyway, considering most people seem to care solely for the first 4 seasons, I'm gonna go ahead and say that while not technically true, Powerpuff Girls is indeed the better show.
I want you and I to hook up. I think I'm gonna be sick.
Holy Jeffrey Epstein, I'm finally done. I ranked every single episode, every special, the movie, and even all the seasons. Like always, it was great going back and rewatching one of my favorite shows as a kid. Going into these rankings, I expect to enjoy these shows less now, mainly because I have a lot of nostalgia for them. With Foster's, I got about what I expected. Some seasons and episodes were notably worse, but others were somehow better than I expected. Season 5 is the only noteworthy season since it's so much worse, and again, I don't really know why. Season 3 was also disappointing, but again, still overall alright. For the most part, while Foster's clearly got worse after season 4, it wasn't by a huge margin, although part of that is due to the movie carrying the last season. But still, the series has its highs and lows, a lot of good episodes, still a chunk of great ones, and thankfully, it's still a solid series.
And you can be Michael, and you can be Magic, and you can be John C.
Anyway, this video took an insane amount of time to write, record, and edit. So if you want to support and help me continue making videos, then you can leave a like, comment, share, or subscribe. You can also join the Discord server, support me on Patreon, or even become a channel member here on YouTube starting at only 99 cents.
But shit, it was...
Anyway, for those who don't know, I made a poll for my last 2 rankings where I let you guys decide what show I should rank and review next. You guys voted and chose Foster's, so I'll let you guys do it yet again. Shortly after this video comes out, I'll make a new poll which will include 4 shows and you can all vote for what my next ranking will be. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Good night, every pony.